Chapter 226. Jojo, you've won, so there's a reward. Arbor reached out and hugged the brocade box the crown prince stuffed into his hands. When he opened it, his gaze was attracted by an ink-colored ring. Without too many garish decorations, this ring quietly laid there. Its lines were very distinct and exuded a unique charm. The child reached out to pick it up and put it on. The ring immediately contracted and very obediently encircled her small hand. You're a mystic weapon master, Arbor said hesitantly. He had wanted to ask last time. Previously, when he was dealing with the zombies, he concentrated all his mystic energy and actually drew out the fire spirit hidden inside the feral. And that fire spirit was extremely similar to the fire spirit the crown prince released with a flip of his hand no matter how he looked at it. Arbor guessed that this guy probably fused a trace of the fire spirit into the feral when he forged it. Emolien nodded with a smile. Smart. How about it, won't you try it? Arbor channeled a wisp of mystic energy into the ring. A wisp of light instantly erupted from the ring. Xiao Mu's face was stoic as she looked up at the transparent cover that enveloped her entire body from the top of her head. Her small mouth involuntarily twitched. This guy. He actually made a cover that looked like an eggshell. Now that it covered her entire body, it was just like an egg yolk was wrapped in the eggshell. Emolien laughed very unkindly and turned around while hugging the child through the eggshell. He just knew that this defensive cover on the child would definitely be extremely adorable. This defensive cover can currently withstand a powerful attack from a level 12 Mystic Cultivator. However, as your cultivation increases, it will also unseal and continue to increase its defensive power. The little stoic silently removed the eggshell and looked down at the brocade box. This brocade box had a compartment. After removing the top layer, an ink-colored glowing metallic doll was revealed. Do I look like I'm still at the age of playing with dolls? The little stoic silently roared in her heart, and her pair of dark eyes irritably glared at the crown prince. Here, put it on and try. The crown prince flipped his palm, revealing a small piece of fluorescent green stone. This is a spirit stone. Put it in its stomach. The little stoic did as he said, but her face was expressionless. Until, greetings, little master. The doll in the box suddenly jumped up and danced as if it had been injected with chicken blood. The child's eyes suddenly widened. He pointed at the little doll that suddenly moved and asked, "What is this? Isn't it fun?" The crown prince chuckled and poked the child's face. "This is a mechanical puppet. They could talk to you to relieve your boredom, send you letters, run errands, and inquire about information. The most important thing is that it can." The crown prince whispered into the little fellow's ear, "Kill people. Murder? Such a tiny little thing?" Xiao Mu's eyes revealed a look that said, "I can stomp it flat with one foot." The crown prince couldn't help but laugh. "Try it. Come." The moment the child jumped down, the golem jumped down as well. It instantly grew to the size of an adult and punched the child's face. Oh my god, it could even grow bigger. This was simply too unconventional. Furthermore, from the looks of it, his strength was comparable to that of a 10th rank body cultivator. No more fighting, no more fighting. This was simply bullying. The child ran a circle around the field, making Hidden Flower and the others secretly laugh. "Hurry and make it stop." The crown prince laughed in spite of himself. "It listens to you." Prince Emo slowly followed the child's short running legs and walked a circle. The child was startled and turned to look at the golem that was chasing after him with large strides. Stop. Chapter 227. After the crown prince carried her into the carriage, the child was a bit drowsy as she lay on his body on the way back. After all, she was still young and was at the age when she liked to sleep. When they arrived at Pear Blossom Alley, the crown prince didn't wake her up and directly carried her back to her room. He only greeted Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbang before he left. The couple looked at each other and felt at the same time that they seemed to have gained a son-in-law who could come and go as he pleased. Thus, when the little fellow woke up early the next day, her eyes blinked as she looked at the bedside canopy, unable to react for a moment. "Good morning, little master." "Little master, you're so beautiful today." "Little master, if you smile, you'll definitely be even more beautiful." "Oh my god." Little Arbor tilted his head to the side and glanced at a certain fellow who was bouncing freely next to the pillow. The corners of his mouth involuntarily twitched. Little Xiao Mu reached out to take the little golem and expressionlessly opened its stomach. A certain fellow whimpered, "Little master, you're going to take away my spirit stones. Little master, I'll miss you, oh." "Shut up." Arbor removed the noisy golem's spirit stones, picked up the bag of spirit stones next to the golem, and tossed it into the bag as well. Yesterday, when she was in a daze, she still heard the crown prince mutter to her, "This golem consumes quite a lot of spirit stones. It's fine if you send a message or ask for information, but if you transform into battle mode, you'll use up one spirit stone every 2 hours." And it was said that things like spirit stones could not be excavated on Seekong planet. The crown prince actually had something that could not be excavated on Seekong planet. Little Xiao Mu thought about it and tossed it aside. She had many secrets anyway. The crown prince did not ask about the little tree's matter, so she naturally would not ask him about it. After putting on her clothes and putting away the golem and bag of spirit stones, Arbor opened the door and walked out. After taking a breath of fresh air, Arbor walked 2 steps along the corridor and suddenly stopped. She looked coldly at the 2 people whose backs were facing her in the small courtyard. Xiao Zhongbang truly did not expect to be stopped by Wen Ruan so early in the morning. Although the 2 of them kept a certain distance from each other, they still felt a little strange when they saw Miss Wen walking closer step by step in a mysterious manner. "Miss Wen, if you have something to say, just say it." Xiao Zhongbang frowned and took 2 steps back. Wen Ruan smiled gently at Xiao Zhongbang and took out a white jade porcelain bottle from her sleeve. She handed it to him and said with a smile, "Big brother Xiao, there's a meridian healing pill inside. It'll definitely help your damaged mystic meridians greatly if you take it. Who knows, there might even be hope for the recovery of his profound veins." Xiao Zhongbang's eyelids suddenly twitched, and his slightly heated gaze landed on the porcelain bottle in Wen Ruan's hand. "This. Miss Wen, I can't accept a reward without any effort. How can I accept such a valuable gift from you?" "Big brother Xiao, don't decline. I've always been grateful that you guys took me in, and I've always wanted to repay Big brother Xiao." Wen Ruan smiled gently and said softly, "Big brother Xiao, are you suspecting the origin of my pill? Don't worry. This pill was given to me by a Taoist priest who had the demeanor of a transcendent being. I helped him out a little and he gave it to me. It's definitely not fake, so don't worry, Big brother Xiao." "No, it's not." Xiao Zhongbang awkwardly took a step back and repeatedly waved his hand. That won't do. Miss Wen, I can't accept this pill, I absolutely can't accept it. You better take it back." "Father." Arbor called out normally and interrupted Wen Ruan's words. Chapter 228. Xiao Zhongbang immediately let out a sigh of relief when he saw his daughter and strode over. "Jojo, you're up. Let's go. Your mother and the others should be waiting in the dining room. Let's go." Could it be that in her previous life, when Ruan also took out this immortal pill and failed to kidnap father, which made grandmother more determined to let her marry into the family? Was it also because father could recover his mystic meridians and become a mystic cultivator that when Ruan was willing to marry him? Otherwise, how could this scheming woman be willing to marry someone else? Later on, she was captured by her friend and had her limbs broken. She was locked up day and night to study her inner world, so she really did not pay attention to whether her father recovered and became a mystic cultivator in the end. However, these matters from her previous life did not matter, because when Ruan, this possible variable, would be erased. Arbor gave when Ruan a thought-provoking gaze. "Jump around properly. There's not much time left, you." She then turned around and followed her father to the dining room. When Ruan inexplicably shuddered and angrily put away the white jade bottle in her hand, she inwardly cursed Xiao Zhongbang for not knowing how to appreciate favors and angrily followed her father to the dining room. She had not eaten breakfast yet, so she naturally could not bring the children out on an empty stomach. When Ruan reached the dining room, she could not help but stifle her anger. Xiao Zhongbang and Xiao Zhongxing's family were happily eating breakfast and completely treated her as invisible. They did not even bother to greet her. Old Madam happened to say that she was not feeling well again, so breakfast was sent to her room. When Ruan was alone, so she took a bowl and chopsticks and casually ate. The more she ate, the more she found the food tasteless. Today's breakfast was just a pot of plain porridge and steamed buns. She ate until her mouth was almost bland. When Rowan knew Wei Ziqin had a secret, because she often saw her fiddling around in the kitchen with the door closed. Soon she would be able to conjure a lot of delicious meat and poultry. But today's breakfast was too plain. Usually when she saw Xiaolin or that girl eating pastries that she had never seen before, she completely didn't know how to share them. She really didn't know how Wei Ziqin raised her daughter. The children she raised were each more selfish and heartless than the other. When Rowan secretly smacked her lips and gently put down the bowl and chopsticks in her hand, no matter how resentful she was, she still wore a very amiable smile on her face. She looked in the direction of Arbor and softly said with a fawning expression, "Jojo, should we go out earlier? We can still stroll around on the way." Xiaolin held a bun in both hands and took a few bites. Her eyes suddenly lit up as she looked at her elder sister. "What's the flower this time?" Qiao Zhongxing laughed unkindly. Arbor also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He extended his hand toward Xiaolin and Xiaolin immediately tilted her small body and pounced toward him. "Mother, father, second uncle will go out first." Arbor stood up with his little sister in his arms. His small body hugging a little bun didn't seem out of place at all. Instead, it was a little creepy. "Jojo, be careful on the road." Mother rubbed her stomach and looked at the sisters with a smile. "Xiaohu, pay attention to your two sisters," second uncle instructed with a smile. "Yes, father," Xiaohu answered hurriedly. Xiaohu answered excitedly. His heart almost flew out of his chest at the thought of being able to go out and play soon. "Don't worry, master and madam. Xiao Yao will take good care of the young master and young miss." Xiao Yao walked over with a chuckle and stood next to Arbor. Little White Flower also smiled hypocritically at Wei Ziqin. "Sister Ziqin, don't worry." Chapter 229. I'm here to look after the children. Absolutely nothing will happen to them. If something happens, ahaha, Rowan will risk her life to protect the children. When Rowan chuckled to herself and did not notice the other people's expressions, Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbang looked at each other, feeling that something was amiss with her words. Why would she say such ominous words for no reason? Of course nothing will happen to the children. What kind of frightening situation would they encounter if they needed you to protect them with your life? Wei Ziqin frowned, feeling slightly uncomfortable. She nodded indifferently at Little White Flower before looking at her daughters with a smile and watching them leave. Qiao Zhongxing turned to his eldest brother. "Eldest brother, I don't know what's wrong with mother. She even refused to eat breakfast today, saying that she's not feeling well. How about we go check on her?" Qiao Zhongbang nodded and said to his wife, "Ziqin, go back and rest. Second brother and I will go check on mother." Then the two brothers walked toward Old Madam's room together. Old Madam was still in high spirits last night, so why was she feeling unwell this early in the morning? Their daughters did not refute Old Madam yesterday, so what was there for her to feel unwell about? "Mother! Mother!" The two brothers knocked on the door outside the room. "Mother, can we come in?" Old Madam answered after a while. "Zhongbang Zhongxing, mother is fine. My head just hurts a bit, so I want to sleep a bit more. Don't disturb mother." The two brothers looked at each other in astonishment. "Mother, why did you suddenly have a headache? How about we have Chongzai go to the medical center in the city and invite a doctor back for mother?" Old Madam Qiao hastily said in a slight panic. "And no need. No need to trouble yourself. Mother will be fine after sleeping a bit more. All right, you two brothers can go. Mother is fine." Why was mother acting so strange? Qiao Zhongbang and his brother muttered softly before leaving in embarrassment. On the other side, Little White Flower led the four children out and sneaked a glance at Jojo. "Jojo, we came out quite early. Where do you want to go?" The four children remained silent. Arbor remained silent and expressionless. Jolin, who was in her arms, was munching on half a bun and ignoring everyone else. Xiao Yao lowered her head and followed her mistress. Since her mistress didn't say anything, she naturally wouldn't say anything. Xiao Hu looked around and didn't hear what the Little White Flower was saying. The four children were so uncooperative that Little White Flower gritted her teeth in anger. Once again, she secretly cursed the Qiao family for not knowing how to raise children. The group of four walked out of Pear Blossom Alley and headed towards the main street. The lively atmosphere that greeted them made Xiao Hu's eyes turn back and forth. He didn't even have the time to watch the fun, let alone listen to little white flowers nagging. "Sister, this time." Little Lin pointed at a stall with her chubby little finger and yelled. Arbor looked back and saw a stall selling silk flowers. He couldn't help but be amused by this little girl. "You're not allowed to eat. Eat half of the bun in your hand. You're not allowed to eat before dinner. Look at how round your stomach is after eating so much." In this day and age, the rice and grain sold on the streets were more expensive than gold. How could they set up a stall selling fine snacks if they couldn't even afford to eat coarse grains? Little Lin pouted and silently continued to munch on her bun. When Rowan scooted over to the sisters and reached out to Qiao Mu ingratiatingly. "Qiao Qiao, Xiao is quite heavy, right? You must be tired from carrying her. How about I carry her for a while?" "No need." Arbor dodged and walked forward with little Lin in his arms. Chapter 230. When Rowan suppressed a trace of anger in her eyes as she roared inwardly, "You're just like your dad. You don't know how to appreciate favors." If it weren't for the fact that the Qiao family was well off and didn't have to worry about food and clothing, she wouldn't have bothered fawning over them like a little wife. She just didn't want to go back to that lousy place in the Western District to suffer. Arbor walked in front with Xiao Lin in his arms, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. As the sun gradually rose, the flow of people on the main street increased. Many people walked toward the Thousand Flowers Plaza in groups. "I think Landlord Li's flower will win first place in the competition." That's right. Even those rich and powerful families are rushing to participate in this Thousand Flowers festival. Poor commoners like us won't be able to make a living. I think we can forget about that 50 kilograms of rice. Everyone discussed in low voices and quite a few people sighed. "Don't worry. I heard there's also an incentive prize for 200 participants. Each person can get a kilogram of beans. But we'll have to rely on the number plate in our hands to draw a prize. We have to hurry and get a matching number plate." "Oh, that's great. Right. Let's hurry and get a plate. But why did the city lord let those filthy fellows from the eastern and western districts in and fight with us for the number plates?" Arbor walked toward the entrance of the plaza where the number plates were distributed. Since they came out to play, they naturally had to put on a show. The number plates were a pair of thin, specially made bamboo slips with numbers carved on the back with a knife. The line was very long, but the number plates were distributed quickly, so it wasn't long before it was their turn. Arbor's children each took a pair. When they flipped it open, they saw that their number was already over 5,000. "Little sister, do you think I'll get a kilogram of beans?" As Qiao Hu spoke, the adults next to him couldn't help but snicker. "Little brother, it all depends on luck. Say there are at least 10,000 people participating in this event in the entire city. It sounds like 200 participants are quite a lot, but compared to the total number of participants, the winning ratio really isn't high." Qiao Hu nodded. "You're right, uncle. It all depends on luck. It'd be great if I could get a kilogram of beans. Hey kid, who doesn't want a caddy of beans? I still want to take that caddy of beans. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get it. My face is white." Qiao Hu raised his head and snorted. Arbor was speechless. "Bro, you don't need a pound of beans. You look so expectant, and you're even arguing with a stranger." She felt that she might be very poor. Seriously, it felt so annoying to bring a bunch of clowns out on the streets. All kinds of flowers and plants were placed along the street, circling around the main street to the plaza. It was extremely crowded and bustling. As the sun approached noon, the people who were watching the flowers began to cast their cards. They cast one card and kept the other. It was said that there would be people in the city lord's mansion working overnight to count the number of the winners. The winners would only be announced the next day. At that time, as long as they were the winners, they would be able to line up at the city lord's mansion to receive food with a number plate. Arbor held little Lin in his arms as they walked. From time to time, he would take down his sister's outstretched hand that was asking for a flower. Suddenly, Xiao Mu's footsteps paused in front of a flower pot that resembled a begonia, and she blinked. The old man who was arranging the flower pot was so happy that he almost jumped out. "Kid, cast your card. Do you like it?" Quickly cast your card for this old man. It was a pity that it had been on display for an entire afternoon, but only a few people had cast their cards. The old man was about to cry. How could he win a prize like this? The whole family was waiting for the rice to boil at home. Old Grandpa, are you selling this flower pot? Arbor's little face was expressionless, but his dark eyes were brighter than ever. Chapter 231. The old man was startled. He examined the children in front of him and saw that they were dressed in bright and beautiful clothes. They should be the children of some wealthy family in the city. He hesitantly asked, "Sell? What's the price?" If the child wanted to give him any gold or silver, he naturally would not sell it. 50 caddies of rice in exchange for your pot of flowers. Are you selling? Arbor asked softly. 50 caddies of rice? The old man's loud voice immediately attracted the attention of a group of people. Originally, not many people paid attention to them, but now that the 50 caddies of rice was mentioned, they immediately surrounded them. Arbor did not like crowds, so he frowned and said, "Grandpa, are you selling or not? 50 caddies of rice in exchange." Of course, of course. His family had a large population, and the monthly allowance from the city lord's estate was not enough to feed them. Even if they lived frugally and ate porridge every day, the food would only last them for 20 days. They would have to think of other ways to feed themselves. The food at home was about to run out, and now the child asked for 50 caddies of rice in exchange. How could the old man refuse? "Then come with me," Arbor said to the old man indifferently. He turned around and led the old man to a tea house on the side of the street. This tea house was actually empty. They could not even fill their stomachs these days. Who would have the leisure and mood to come here like an idiot to drink tea and talk about swords? Arbor randomly picked a private room and walked in. He said softly, "Stop them outside." "Yes, Mississippi-o." Ye immediately appeared and blocked the crowd who wanted to rush in with a murderous expression. "Miss has ordered that no one is allowed inside." "I'm not an outsider. Let me in. I'm a relative of your Mississippi." When Rowan wanted to squeeze in but was blocked and pushed by Aoye's extended arm. When Rowan staggered back several steps and was immediately pushed to the back by the crowd. She was so angry that her face turned pale and her lips trembled. Aoye stood at the half-open door of the tea house and said coldly, "No one is allowed inside. Otherwise you will be killed without mercy." Everyone immediately took a few big steps back. They all looked at the black-clothed youth with disbelief in their eyes. Wasn't he just curious and wanted to see if the little girl could take out so much food? He didn't need to kill anyone. A middle-aged woman curled her lips in disdain and said, "I think this child is either crazy or lying. In this kind of day, who would use precious 50 caddies of rice to exchange for a pot of useless flowers that can only be admired? My little sister loves to eat flowers." Xiao Hu stood at the entrance of the tea house and angrily shouted at the woman. What do these people know? Eldest younger sister was so powerful. She must have her own reasons for doing this. A group of onlookers liked to spew nonsense when they had nothing to do. Yes, the second flower. Xiao Lin was pulled to Xiao Hu's side and nodded her little head in agreement. Everyone was speechless. Not long after, the old man happily walked out with a big bag of rice. The weight of the 50 kilograms of rice made him bend over, but his face was glowing, and he felt strong all over. Arbor slowly walked out and temporarily put the pot of begonia-like flowers into the storage talisman. When everyone saw the old man come out with a bag of rice on his back, their eyes immediately widened. God, the old man really exchanged that pot of flowers for 50 caddies of rice. Is it true? Little girl, your little sister likes to eat flowers. I have flowers too. I'll sell them to you. It's not expensive. I only want 40 caddies of rice. Get lost. Child, buy mine. Buy mine. I'll give you 30 caddies. 30 caddies of rice in exchange. Chapter 232. What's up with these people? Arbor stood at the entrance of the tea house in a daze and frowned as he watched a group of people holding flower pots and squeezing toward her. Too noisy. Aoye pulled out his 3-foot-long sword with a whoosh, scaring the crowd that was fighting to sell flowers and causing them to hastily retreat like the tide. So hard to run a small business. Why do people have to point their swords at me? when Rowan was the one who was about to explode from anger. She was pushed and shoved further and further away from the tea house by the barbaric crowd. She had just called out "Chow Chow" when she suddenly felt a weight on her shoulder. Someone held her down. "How dare you?" when Rowan angrily rebuked and turned to look at that lecher. In her enlarged eyes, a wrinkled face with completely dead skin suddenly appeared. That thing suddenly grinned and gave her a smile. With a plop, a piece of rotten meat fell from his chin. When Rowan's hair stood on end. "Ah!" She let out an earth-shattering scream and turned to run toward the crowd while trembling all over. "Corpse puppet! The corpse puppet is here! Save me! Save me!" The crowd that was squeezing in front immediately dispersed to the sides in tacit understanding. Who cared if she lived or died? They all turned around and ran away with pale faces, dragging their families with them. They stopped selling flowers and could no longer watch the show. Everyone ran back home in fear of their own safety. However, they soon realized that something was amiss. This corpse puppet seemed to be chasing after that unlucky girl. It didn't even look at them. Coincidentally, a fat woman was running in a panic and didn't look where she was going. She crashed into someone's stall and couldn't get up. The corpse puppet passed by her like the wind and didn't even look at her out of the corner of its eye. The fat woman originally thought she was going to die. Her face was pale with fright, and her mouth was trembling so much that she couldn't even speak. When she saw the corpse puppet running away, she opened her mouth wide in shock, her eyes filled with disbelief. Everyone hid on both sides of the street. The braver ones stopped and almost laughed out loud when they saw what was happening. This corpse puppet was really amusing. It didn't catch anyone and just chased after that girl. As it ran, it hissed and roared, scaring the girl so much that she rolled and crawled all over the street. She kept running forward like a headless fly. "It's Antoine." Xiao, who was stunned as he stood at the entrance of the tea house. "Xiao Yao, you keep an eye on the two of them. I'll go and see what happened to Antoine." Arbor's eyes flashed when he read the two words, Antoine. Xiao Yao held back her laughter and nodded. She reached out and took Xiao Lin-er's little hand. Why is that girl running towards Autumn Moon Garden? That place is just a 7-story opera house. It's so empty that there's nowhere to hide. Quickly report to the city lord that a corpse puppet has broken into the city. Ah! Save me, save me, save me. When Rowan begged the passersby for help with a face full of terror. However, every time she touched a passerby, they would fling her hand away in a panic and continuously retreat, opening up a very wide path for her and the corpse puppet. Roar, roar, roar. The corpse puppet that couldn't catch up to her for a long time roared furiously, and suddenly increased its speed to chase after her. When Rowan resisted the urge to faint and stumbled into the garden. She stumbled and crawled into the pavilion and ran up the stairs while holding onto the handrail. After running up 3 floors and not even the 4th, she was completely exhausted. She leaned against the handrail and panted heavily. Suddenly, a small and smooth hand grabbed her wrist, startling her into reflexively flinging her hand away and screaming. Chapter 233. Antoine, it's me. Arbor's unique soft voice rang in her ears, rousing Rowan's spirits. Jojo, save me. Hurry and save me. When Rowan grabbed Arbor's wrist tightly like a drowning person grabbing onto a piece of driftwood, she said tearfully, "Why, you're a mystic cultivator. You can definitely save my Jojo. Am I right?" Roar, roar, roar. The roar of a zombie came from below the building at the right time. The background music was really quite good. Arbor's lips twitched. She grabbed Rowan and said anxiously, "Antoine, let's run. I can't beat this monster. It's so strong." Rowan's heart sank bit by bit. She had overestimated Chow Mu, this damn lass. But then again, she was only a 7-year-old child. Even if she was a mystic cultivator, how high could her cultivation be? Facing a strong zombie, the child would definitely not be able to deal with it. If the zombie caught up to her later, then a vicious and sinister glint flashed through Rowan's eyes. She could not die no matter what. For the sake of his own life, he could only push Chow Mu, this damn lass, out as a shield when the time came. Who told her to come here and court death? It was all because of her. She found her at the brink of death, when Rowan relied on her survival instincts and climbed to the top floor of the theater building breathlessly. She was as tired as a dead dog as she lay on the railing, panting heavily. There was a tall trellis on the top floor of the theater building, and it was surrounded by a carved fence. Usually, the audience would sit in the elegant pavilion across the street to drink tea and listen to music. They would only sit in the open air when the weather was good. When Rowan panted heavily as she clung to the railing. Looking down from above, she felt dizzy and could not stand steadily. She hastily turned around and leaned against the railing. She gripped the railing so tightly that her fingers turned slightly white. "Is it catching up to us?" Huff, 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 huff. When Rowan was sweating profusely and panting non-stop, due to the intense running, her heart felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. It was extremely uncomfortable. "I don't think so." The child looked at her calmly, his voice very calm. Not to mention panting loudly, the child's unchanging stoic face didn't even have the slightest change in emotion. It was expressionless as usual. When Rowan seemed to have realized something, and her pupils abruptly contracted. She gripped the railing tightly with both hands and stared at the child vigilantly. Why? Wasn't this child a little too calm? When Rowan felt a slight tremble from her soul to her body, as she stared into the depths of those emotionless eyes. A terrifying emotion rapidly spread through her heart. Cough, cough, cough. When Rowan choked on a mouthful of air and coughed loudly. "Jojo, why you? Huff, 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 why do you have a way to deal with that zombie below? Don't lie to Aunt One." "I don't have a way." The child slowly walked toward her. Tap, tap, tap. Every small step seemed to land on Rowan's heart, causing her heart to palpitate and her eyelids to twitch non-stop. At this moment, a roar came from the top floor. When Rowan's nerves were stretched taut, she sternly yelled at Jojo, "Jojo, come to me quickly. It's coming, it's coming." Damn it, this child seemed too calm. She had to have him firmly in her hands. She heard that zombies wouldn't pay attention to other people when they were focused on eating a person's corpse. Chapter 234. "Aunt One, you're not trying to push me to death so you can run away yourself, right?" Xiao Mu suddenly stopped in her tracks. She tilted her head and looked at the woman who was as gentle as water with a strange expression. When Rowan's heart skipped a beat. She tried her best to maintain her composure, but she stuttered, "How is that possible? Why would Aunt One do that?" Heh. The child's voice was faint. His soft voice rose slightly at the end with an inexplicable meaning. When Rowan gulped and waved at the child with a mocking smile. "Jojo, come here. Come to Aunt Wen's side. Do you still remember that before Aunt Wen left, I promised your parents that no matter what happened, I would guarantee the safety of you and your siblings?" "Oh right. Wait." When Rowan feigned embarrassment with a smile and urged Xiao Mu, then come over, Xiao Xiao. "Don't worry, even if Aunt Wen has to risk her life, I will definitely protect you, Xiao Xiao." "Aunt Wen, you're such a good person." Arbor nodded and pattered to her side, looking as though he was a good person. When Rowan suddenly grabbed Arbor's wrist and held it tightly in her palm. Arbor could not help but be slightly surprised by the strength of her grip. It turned out that a normal person could also explode with a powerful force when their life was in danger. Bang! A rotting figure suddenly stepped onto the stage in the middle and howled at Rowan. When Rowan's face instantly turned pale from fright. She tightly grabbed Arbor's wrist and subconsciously pulled him in front of her to shield her. "Jojo, don't be scared. I'll feed you to the zombie later. It'll only hurt a bit when it bites you, but you'll soon lose all feeling. For my life, I can only sacrifice you, you damn girl. Every man for himself. Don't blame me for being vicious." When Rowan's eyes widened, she abruptly discovered that her body was forcefully pushed by someone, causing her to fall backward against the railing. What? What happened? She was caught off guard and never thought that the child in her arms would have such evil intentions towards her. He actually knew. Strike first and gain the upper hand. He was the first to reach out his demonic claws and ruthlessly push her chest. Her body uncontrollably fell flat on the ground. No, her entire body flipped backward and fell out of the railing. No. That's impossible. What's outside the railing? The 7-story theater was several zhang high. If an ordinary person were to fall from it, they would definitely die. The last thing Wen Ruoan saw was the little girl's pair of pitch-black pupils that were as cold as knives. Miss Wen's horrified expression was written all over her face. She opened her mouth but no words came out. Her eyes were filled with 3 words. Why? She had struggled so hard in this world, bitterly seeking survival. She had worked so hard, yet she still could not ask for the mercy of the heavens. Why did he want to kill her? Why did the child want her dead? She was just an ordinary person. What did her being alive do to the child? As she screamed and fell, she clearly saw a faint smile in the child's eyes. Smile? The child was smiling. She was laughing at her stupidity. She was laughing at her scheming, but in the end she still died. She hated it. She really hated it. When Ruoan fell straight down from the 7-story theater. Without any suspense, she was restrained by the Earth's core and landed on the ground with a bang. Her limbs were stiff and spread out. When Ruoan stared at the sky with her eyes wide open. However, she could no longer see anything in that instant. A smear of dark red blood slowly spread out from the back of her head. Chapter 235. Ant One. Xiaomu softly repeated these 3 words, her tone containing an unusual playfulness. You don't understand why? You don't need to understand. You only need to know that I don't need you to participate in my future life. If you had obediently stayed far away from me, I could have let you off. However, since you foolishly wanted to approach me, then I can only let you die. I don't mind staining my hands with your blood because you owed me in your previous life. Karma is a cycle of retribution. Since the heavens chose not to take revenge, then I'll personally take care of you, this scourge. Arbor stood in front of the railings and looked ahead with a serene gaze. The afterglow of dusk dyed the distant sky red, which contrasted well with the blood-red color in front of him. Her small body was abruptly lifted up horizontally. Only she knew how tense her body was, but it slightly relaxed under this oppressive warmth. Clean it up, the crown prince said and left with the child without looking back. Hidden Flower, who was standing on the platform and facing the mirror to tidy up his messy hair and rotting flesh, sighed when he heard the crown prince's words. I didn't expect that not only would I have to pretend to be a zombie, but I would also have to chase after a woman on the streets. Now I have to stay behind to clean up the mess. Being a subordinate was such a bitter life. Hidden Flower lifted his sleeve and smelled the stench. He almost fainted from the stench. It must have been hard on the youth, Hidden Current, to pretend to be a zombie for so many days and dress up like this every day. It was truly smelly to death. Hidden Flower let out a series of zombie roars and screamed until his throat was hoarse, attracting a crowd. Ahem ahem ahem. Pooh, I have to ask the crown prince for a few throat-soothing pills when I get home. My throat hurts from screaming. Unfortunately, after the youth roared for so long, how could the commoners dare to come and court death? They heard there were zombies in the theater, so who dared to barge in? Fortunately, someone went to inform City Lord Gu. City Lord Gu didn't come slowly. By the time he gathered a group of people and rushed over with an unsightly expression, almost an hour had passed. Not long after everyone stepped into the sparse garden, they saw Wen Ruoan lying on the ground in front of the opera house. She died with remaining grievances. City Lord Gu and the others were shocked for a second. Many of them pointed their weapons at corpse Wen Ruoan, afraid that she would jump out and become a zombie in the next second. After waiting for a long time without any response, City Lord Gu's face darkened as he waved his hand and said, Go and search everywhere. Let's see if that zombie is still in the garden." Of course he ended up with nothing. Hidden Flower wasn't stupid. After attracting people over, he slipped away. "City Lord, what do we do with this young lady?" Zhang Yan felt that the corpse woman looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen her before. After all, he dealt with so many people entering the city in a day. How could he remember everyone? "I have to burn it quickly, in case it turns into a zombie." City Lord Gu made a prompt decision. Send someone to check her identity after burning it. We have to send a message to her family. After City Lord Gu finished speaking, he sighed. These days he saw people die every day. City Lord Gu could be considered to be used to it. Zhang Yan nodded after hearing that. He directed a few brawny men to put the young lady into a corpse bag and transport her away. A fire burned when Rowan, burning everything to ashes. Something absent-mindedly flashed past Xiao Mu's eyes. She quietly stood on top of an arched bridge, her eyes fixated on the trickling water below the bridge. She flipped her small hand slightly, and a white jade porcelain bottle lay quietly in her palm. Chapter 236. This was the pill she stole from Rowan. Apparently, it could help heal damaged mystic meridians. However, after Arbor repeatedly examined it, he discovered that it was only a normal meridian pill. It could only mediate the normal meridians in the body after consumption. It could not heal damaged mystic meridians like when Rowan said. Thus, strictly speaking, it was basically useless to her father. She remembered when Rowan saying that the pill was gifted to her by a wandering Taoist priest. That sounded untrue no matter how she listened to it. However, none of this mattered anymore because a person's death was like an extinguished lamp. Everything was no longer important. Splash! The small white jade bottle was thrown into the water, and it slowly sank into the water. Emolienne grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the bottom of the bridge. You should feel better after being exposed to the wind for so long. Don't you think I'm cruel? The child lowered her head and kicked a small pebble at the tip of her foot. Emolienne squeezed her hand with a smile. When I was 8 years old, I killed a personal nanny who took care of me and implicated many people. At the time, Royal Father ordered them all to be executed. Do you think I'm cruel? She harmed you. The little fellow raised her chin and stared at the youth with her pitch-black eyes. That's right. She poisoned me and was discovered. At the time she begged me and knelt on the ground crying and shouting. She told me from when I was 3 years old to when I was 7. She kept on confessing that she used to take care of me so attentively. Emolienne absent-mindedly raised her head and glanced at the distant night. I didn't forgive her. Moreover, I personally executed her. I used to respect her a lot. She was a woman who looked very benevolent. She deserved to die, Xiao Qiao said coldly. You didn't do anything wrong. What right did a traitor have to cry and shout in front of you? If it were me, I would have made her beg for death. That so-called friend from her previous life better pray to the gods and Buddha that he didn't appear in front of her. Otherwise, she wouldn't let him go. Are you going back? The child tugged at Prince Mo's hand. I'm not busy. I can stay for a few more days. Huifeng, who was secretly following them in the dark, quietly exchanged a glance with Aoi. In the past 2 days, impeachment letters had been sent to the queen like snowflakes. The matter of the crown prince abandoning state affairs and running away in the middle of the night had even startled the queen dowager. How could she be as indifferent as a certain master said? Emolienne suddenly picked up the child and sniffed her tiny neck. Why do you have a stench on you? Arbor, he really wanted to slap this guy to death. Wasn't the stench caused by him? It's your subordinate stench. Your subordinate passed the stench to me. The child rolled his eyes. When he thought of how Hidden Flower had disguised himself as a zombie and chased after them, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Then I'll go back and punish him later. I'll help you vent your anger, okay? The crown prince said with a straight face. Arbor couldn't help but be curious and looked up at him. What do you plan on punishing him for? Making him disguise himself as a zombie for half a month and not allowing him to bathe. What do you think of this method? Emolienne lowered her head and winked at the child. Yi and Huifeng, who were secretly following them, both felt their feet slip. They deeply sympathized with the captain of the hidden pavilion. The child's eyes immediately turned round. Then he's not allowed to appear in front of me again. Otherwise she might faint from the stench. Chapter 237. Okay. The crown prince immediately nodded. This pair of heartless people decided Hidden Flower's tragic fate for the next half a month with just a few sentences. Yi and Huifeng looked at each other, and both observed a moment of silence for Hidden Flower. Today is the Thousand Flower Festival. It's rare for it to be so lively, but the good atmosphere was ruined. Arbor lamented in a small voice. The two of them walked down the street. The ground was littered with flowers, and there was not a single person in sight. The crowd must have been scared back home. Isn't this pretty good? You like peace and quiet, and I also like this kind of peaceful atmosphere. Emolien smiled. The ground is littered with flowers, the little fellow muttered. She lay on the youth's shoulder and looked up at the night sky. It's ugly. Only a ray of moonlight faintly shone down. The moonlight was warm. Emolien chuckled and pointed up. Isn't it easy to see flowers? Look over there. Under the moonlight in the distance, a shower of flowers spun up. Colorful petals fluttered down. And it was as if they were performing a beautiful flower dance under the night sky. A few petals were blown by the night wind and stuck to the child's upturned face. The night sky had been replaced by the brilliance of luminous pearls. Red, yellow, pink, and green petals fluttered in the air. It's beautiful. The child's unbreakable frozen face showed signs of cracking. Her lips tugged into an uncoordinated smile, and she subconsciously reached out to grab the falling petals. This truly was the Thousand-Flower Festival, not just in name but also in reality. The gloominess brought about by when Rawan's death was completely swept away now. For you. The youth handed a small box adorned with round purple gems to the child. The child opened the box and saw that it was not jewelry but a box full of colorful petals. The fragrance assailed her nostrils. For a moment, her heart was touched, and a warm ray of sunlight seemed to shine into the darkest corner of her heart. You stink. I'll let you smell it when you take a bath at home, the youth said with a serious expression. Fuck. The sunlight is gone. My feelings and whatnot were all fed to the dogs. You're the stinky one. The child slammed the box shut and turned his head with a biting expression. Emolien chuckled and walked through a sea of flowers with the child in his arms. His figure gradually disappeared into the night. By the time Arbor was carried back to the original street by the youth, the siblings met up, and the children were sent home by the crown prince. It was almost late at night. Qiao Zhongbang, his wife, and second Uncle Qiao had been waiting anxiously for a long time and couldn't sit still. Second Uncle Qiao had even gone out to search and brought back the bad news of a zombie attack on the streets. Just as the family was about to go out and search again, the children came back. Wei Ziqin heaved a sigh of relief. She reached out to pull her eldest daughter over and asked worriedly, "Child, are you all right? Is it true that a zombie sneaked into the city?" It's true. Arbor nodded. That zombie attacked Aunt One. I'm sorry, Mother. I chased after Aunt One but couldn't find her. The zombie might have chased her far away. I was worried about Shaoliner, so I went back to look for them. I didn't continue to chase after Aunt One. Wei Ziqin shuddered with fear. Only then did Qiao Zhongbang and second Uncle Qiao realize that when Rawan did not come back with them, the family hastily thanked the Crown Prince for escorting the children back. His Highness the Crown Prince naturally gained a favorable impression in front of the Qiao family. Chapter 238. Mother, I'm useless. I couldn't save Aunt One, Qiao Mu said expressionlessly. Fortunately, this child was used to being expressionless all year round. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't be able to pretend to feel guilty or something. Silly child. The adults continuously imagined the scene of the child, chasing with all her might but turning back helplessly. They all comforted her. Silly girl, how old are you? It's already good that you can protect yourself. That's right. Father said emotionally. It's good that you all came back safely. Second Uncle Qiao sighed and concluded. Life is hard to predict. This is also fate. Miss One is too unlucky. She even said some inauspicious things when she went out, and in the end. The child's face was expressionless, but she actually wanted to laugh in her heart. Qiao Zhongbang and the others comforted her again before sending off the Crown Prince with a smile. They hurriedly let the children wash up and rest. In the side room, Arbor leaned over the bathtub and flipped through the jeweled box filled with flower petals. She snorted softly and pouted. Lifting up a few petals and sprinkling them on the water, Arbor kicked her small feet in the water. She raised her small hand slightly, and a blue talisman quietly floated in front of her. She took out the pot of flowers from the storage talisman and placed it on the round stool beside the bathtub. Arbor's small hand held a pair of small scissors horizontally. Chocho, are you asleep? Arbor approached the flower with the scissors and cut off one of the flower buds. She peeled off the petals one by one, revealing the light green stamen. There were a dozen small green beads on the small stamen. They were small and round, and their skin was soft. They couldn't be pinched and could only be taken lightly. They looked very delicate. Arbor's movements were light and fast. She took these small green beads one by one and placed them all on one of the petals. Can you tell me how I know that this isn't a begonia at all? It's a medicinal plant called the green radish flower. Arbor reached out and gently fiddled with the small beads. Every budding green radish flower has a dozen green radish seeds in its stamen. The poison pills made from this will be thousands of times stronger than the poison pill that the young miss of the prince's mansion gave me. Arbor raised his head. The corners of his mouth slightly curved as he stared at the pot of radish flowers. Other than the flower bud that she had taken away, there were 3 or 4 smaller ones in the pot. Other than that, the large blooming flowers had already lost their medicinal value. Chocho, did I really learn medical skills from someone? Why, can't I remember? Arbor's small hand stirred the water in the tub. His voice was a little low, and for some reason his chest felt a little stuffy. Little master, Chocho only remembers that you've memorized countless medical and poison books such as the 10,000 Poison Holy Scroll. Your master is actually very powerful. However, because Little Mistress had traveled through time and space to be reborn, a large portion of your power had been sealed, which caused a portion of your memories to be lost. If Chocho could appear in front of Little Chow right now, it would definitely have a serious expression on its face. Little Mistress, after you were sealed, Chocho was actually the most pitiful one. What the heck was with this sudden change in style and crying tone? Chocho used a very long time to accumulate that little bit of power. It wasn't easy for me to grow 2 leaves. Luckily, after Little Mistress was sealed, those 2 gluttons were also sealed on the main planet. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to keep my 2 leaves. I remember you said that your leaves can not only increase one's perception of mystic energy, but also strengthen the body and extend the lifespan of ordinary people. The sapling shuddered in his dantian, feeling that something bad was about to happen. Chapter 239. Chocho leaves. Ha ha ha. Master, actually, after you were sealed, Chocho's memories also became incomparably chaotic. That's why I sometimes remember something, and sometimes I don't remember anything. Chocho awkwardly tried to change the topic. Furthermore, Master probably doesn't know. The items in your inner world that you can see with your naked eyes are only a small part of it. Your inner world hasn't been fully opened, so you can't really use it right now. Furthermore, compared to the resources on your main planet, even if your inner world is fully opened, the items on your main planet are only a drop in the ocean. Chocho sighed with emotion. Arbor chuckled. Don't try to say such strange things. Forcefully changing the topic. Chocho, give me the leaves. Little Master, believe me, Chocho is telling the truth. If Little Master can reach rank 7 cultivation now, Chocho can immediately help you integrate the Heart of Paradise into the star domain. In the future, Little Master won't have to go through so much trouble and have to take out the Heart of Paradise every time you want to store something. Furthermore, you can enter Paradise Planet yourself. After blabbering on and on, Arbor's large eyes widened slightly, and he roared, leaves! Leaves! Woo-woo-woo. Chocho shook its bare branches as it watched its only 2 leaves being snatched away by its unscrupulous little master. It felt a chill in its heart. Arbor crawled out of the water and carelessly wiped himself clean before putting on his inner clothes. He lowered his head to look at the 2 lush green leaves in his palm and asked softly, Chocho, can I still see Master? I'm afraid that's very difficult. I only remember that your soul was unstable at that time. If you continued to stay by your master's side, you would have completely disappeared. That's why I remember your master and your martial uncle. It was your master and martial uncle who borrowed the power of spacetime to send you back. So the reason I was reborn here was actually by master and martial uncle's doing? And before that, as a soul, I wandered the world for who knows how many years. Arbor suddenly reached out to grab the inner clothes in front of his chest, feeling some pain in his heart that made him unable to breathe. Those years of wandering, just what kind of important thing have I forgotten? My master? What's my master's name? Arbor asked uneasily as he sat on the edge of the bed. What is my name? And my little disciple still doesn't know her master's name? A figure suddenly jumped in through the window. Under the faint moonlight, she gave her a very beautiful smile. Aya, Master naturally calls you Murong Soon. Arbor was dumbfounded. Wasn't Morong-soon's arrival too coincidental? Her reply was also especially smooth and seamless. Little disciple, what's with your expression? Aren't you happy to see your master? Morong-soon flashed in front of her and picked up this soft and cuddly child. She chuckled and said, "You truly are a little rascal. We haven't seen each other for so long, but you didn't miss your master at all?" "Master, we've been back from Qinghe town for several days. It was eldest senior sister who said you didn't know where you went for a stroll, and it was you who abandoned the disciples," the little stoic replied. Morong-soon did not feel awkward at all. Instead, she guffawed and rubbed the child's stoic face. "Disciple, master and your senior sisters are going back to the sect tomorrow. Do you want to come with us?" Arbor was silent for a moment before saying, "Sorry, master." This disciple was willful. "I want to wait until mother gives birth to a younger brother or sister before I go back to the sect." Morong-soon pinched the child's face with a smile. "Child, why are you so old? At your age, this is the time to be willful and reckless. Don't worry, you can be willful as much as you want. Master is here for everything." Chapter 240. Master. Arbor turned her small head to look at her. "Why do you keep pinching my face?" Morong-soon said matter-of-factly, "You have facial paralysis, so master will pinch it for you to see when your face can become more lively." Arbor. Morong-soon chuckled and placed the child on a stool. She pulled out a map from her sleeve and stuffed it into the child's hands. "Do you know Five Moon City? It's quite far from Emo Kingdom. You have to leave the northern part of planet Seikong and head west to the Great Snow Mountain outside Five Moon City. That's our Holy Water Sect's headquarters. Although many countries exist side by side in the northern part, Emo Kingdom is very powerful and has basically unified the northern part, so the northern part won't be too chaotic. The western part is different. The tribes and clans in the western part mostly fight each other, and there are all kinds of chaotic battles every day. I'm afraid there are also many mutated zombies." Morong-soon stroked the child's confused face. "How about master leave someone here to wait for you? I'll bring you back to the sect when the time comes." Arbor hastily shook her head. She was not a real 7-year-old child and needed an adult to accompany her to school. Moreover, 2 months of time was neither long nor short, so why should she delay her senior sister's cultivation time? "You little girl, didn't master say you could be willful and act spoiled with master at any time? You're so sensible that even master's heart aches when I see you." Morong-soon reached out to rub the child's icy face. "When you go to the sect to cultivate this time, you'll have to let go of everything in the secular world. You won't be able to return home for at most 8 to 10 years, or at least 3 to 5 years. It's good that you stay for a few more days. You can properly say goodbye to your family and have a good talk with your parents." "Okay." Arbor nodded obediently. "There's an extremely rich mystical treasured land on our sect's Snow Mountain. The mystic energy there is so dense that you can't imagine it. I believe you'll like it a lot, my disciple. Hurry and come. Okay? Silly disciple, don't make master wait too long." After Morong-soon finished giving her instructions, she finally finished pinching her petite face and elegantly slipped through the window. Before she left, she even left behind a seductive sentence. Seriously, Morong-soon was definitely doing this on purpose. What treasured land with unimaginable mystic energy density. My ass, it made people's hearts flutter. Master Silver, let's go now. Mystical treasured land. Just the sound of it was amazing. His profound energy was definitely very, very thick and enormous. "I want to suck. Chio's exaggerated cries rang out in her mind. "Shut up, don't make so much noise. I'll bring you there in 2 months. Xiao Mu tiredly opened her mouth and gave a small yawn. After a busy night, she truly couldn't take it anymore. She climbed onto the bed and rolled into the thin blanket, wrapping her small body like a cicada cocoon. Even her small head was tucked into the thin blanket, leaving only her black hair hanging outside. Arbor closed her eyes. Her forehead, which was buried in the thin blanket, glistened with beads of sweat. In reality, there was no need to wrap herself so tightly in this hot weather. However, she was used to it and felt that the tighter she wrapped herself, the more secure she felt. At noon the next day, Arbor was woken up by the warm sunlight falling on her eyes. The child wrapped in the thin blanket was drenched in sweat. She flung the blanket off her body and got up. After washing up and changing into a clean and fresh set of clothes, Arbor went down the attic. She actually slept until noon. It looked like she really was tired yesterday. Her physical exhaustion was secondary, but the most important thing was her mental exhaustion. Chapter 241. As soon as Arbor entered the main hall, he paused in his steps. As it turned out, City Lord Gu and Mr. Zhang were also present. They were talking to their parents and second uncle. Elderly Lady Qiao was sitting at the side, her eyes red as though she had just cried. Sun Yang consoled her from the side. Elderly Lady Qiao wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and sighed. Rowan was truly a poor child. I didn't expect something like this to happen yesterday. Her death was truly too unjust. City Lord Gu's eyes brightened when he saw Arbor enter. He hastily walked up and politely greeted the child. Miss Qiao, were you frightened by yesterday's incident? Arbor naturally pretended to be hesitant and nodded. City Lord Gu came to deliver Rowan's ashes. After cremating her, he should at least leave some ashes for her family as a memento. City Lord Gu was shocked when he found out Rowan's identity last night. He was still on tenterhooks when he came to visit, afraid that the little girl would angrily rebuke him. However, it seemed that this Miss Wen did not have much status in this family. After all, she was an outsider and was only slightly related to elderly Lady Qiao. Although Qiao Zhongbang and his wife sighed, they were not sad. They calmly received the news of her death. After all, they had only interacted with Rowan for a few days. Qiao Zhongbang felt that this Miss Wen had a lot of thoughts. When City Lord Gu and Mr. Zhang went out, they coincidentally saw the Crown Prince enter the Qiao residence. City Lord Gu hastily said to Mr. Zhang, "Has Miss Qiao's reward from the previous mission been delivered?" "It has." "Don't worry, sir." "Io, then hurry up and send some things over. Just say it's a supplementary reward. His Highness the Crown Prince eats, lives and comes to the Qiao residence every day, right? We can't let a little girl spend money to feed His Highness, right? That's not good." His Highness was a bit shameless. Mr. Zhang was dumbfounded. What the hell was Sir Gu thinking? You're saying His Highness is a freeloader behind his back. How much do you want to die? Oh, little Mo is here. Wei Ziqin smiled happily when she saw Mo Lian. She hurriedly invited him in and sat down. Jojo just woke up. Let's have lunch early. Jojo must be hungry too. Auntie, you don't have to work so hard. Just eat something. Prince Mo, who used to have "I'm hard to please" written all over his body, responded with a smile and put on a face that said, "I only need a bowl of rice to satisfy you." Arbor stealthily shot a murderous glare at this guy. He couldn't help but raise his chin at him, indicating for him to scram. This damned fellow. He came to their house every day and was especially familiar with his father and second uncle. Where did these three men get so much nonsense from? A certain crown prince was well-read and intelligent. As long as he was willing, he could really talk about any topic. Whether it was martial arts techniques or military affairs, he could talk about anything. Therefore, father and second uncle were really chatting with the crown prince. The more they chatted, the happier they were. They kept praising young Master Mo, saying that he was knowledgeable and had exceptional talent. They were really putting all the good things they had on him. In just 2 or 3 days he took in her entire family. Even the little foodie would say "Big Brother" this time every time she saw the crown prince. Darling Qiao was really infuriated. This group of people with no moral integrity had all changed sides in a moment of inexplicable carelessness. "Come out." Arbor gave a certain crown prince a murderous look. Wei Ziqin hurriedly went up to pat Xiao Mu's head. She looked at her daughter in complaint. "What are you saying, child? Don't be fierce to little Mo." Chapter 242. Yes, don't yell at me. Crown Prince nodded repeatedly, his almond-shaped eyes sweeping over the child as he chuckled. How infuriating. Mother wasn't even Jojo's biological mother anymore. Ahem. Madame Qiao coughed lightly, trying to attract Arbor's attention. "Jojo, I heard that grandmother's body hasn't been well these past 2 days. Arbor turned his head and replied coldly, "Sun Yang, Why aren't you helping grandmother back to her room to rest? Madame Chow was so angry that she pursed her lips. She hadn't even finished speaking. Judging from the little girl's string of words, she probably didn't want to see her at all. Madame Chow hurriedly sat up straight and rushed to say, Jojo, do you have any good medicine on you? Grandmother's hand accidentally bled this morning. If you have any good medicine, lend it to grandmother to apply it. Madame Chow forced a smile at the little girl. She rolled up her right sleeve, revealing a red, glistening wound on the back of her hand. Mother, where did you get hurt? Xiao Zhongbang jumped up. He was close and saw that the wound was quite long and deep. Xiao Zhongbang's heart ached for his mother, and he couldn't help but complain, Sunyang, how are you taking care of Madame Chow? How did you let Madame Chow get hurt like this? Sunyang was also shocked. She hurriedly shook her head and said, Master, this old servant really doesn't know when Madame Chow hurt her hand. Arbor and Crown Prince approached one after another, looking down to examine the wound carefully. When she raised her head, Xiao Mu tugged the corner of her mouth at elderly Lady Chow and tossed her a cold, thought-provoking smile. Madame Chow froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. However, her old face quickly calmed down, and she continued to look at Arbor innocently. Jojo, do you have any good medicine? Yes, I have all kinds of medicine. Arbor's smile becomes more and more interesting. She takes out a small box of high-quality ointment from her waist. It's the leftover ointment that Emolyoshi used to scratch her. Grandmother, let your granddaughter apply it to your wound. Granddaughter can show her filial piety, Arbor said softly with a smile. The old lady felt goosebumps all over her body. She was really not used to the little guy speaking so politely to her. There's no need. I'll go back to my room and apply it myself. Madame Chow snatched the ointment from Arbor's hand and hurriedly stuffed it into her pocket. She got up and said that she had a headache and wanted to go back to her room to rest. Then she fled without looking back. Xiao Yao, you stay here with mother and sister. Father, second uncle, come with me. As soon as the old lady left, Arbor's little face turned cold. Second uncle and Father Chow looked at each other, their hearts sinking. The old lady took the medicine and hurried back to the house. As soon as she entered the house, she was disgusted by the rotten smell. She endured the discomfort and hurriedly pushed open the door to the small room. She called out softly, Wanner, quickly come and apply the medicine. Mother got the ointment. A woman with long withered and disheveled hair suddenly turned around. There were dark circles under her eyes. Xiao Wanwan snatched the ointment from the old lady's hand and complained anxiously, why were you gone for so long? Ever since the day she was scratched by the zombie, her wound had never healed. It was even worse these 2 days. It actually started to fester and rot, and she even saw a small piece of rotten flesh fall off her arm. No matter what ointment she applied, it didn't help. She remembered that her niece had a lot of high-quality ointment on her, so she took the risk to sneak into the Chow family in the middle of the night to ask her mother for help. Chapter 243. It's not like you don't know that your niece is more cunning than a ghost. If she knew that you snuck home, she would definitely chase you and even me out of the house without mercy. Old Madame Chow said with lingering fear. Mom will help you apply it. Old Madame Chow looked at the wound on her daughter's arm worriedly, and tears streamed down her face. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. How could it not hurt? Xiao Wanwan felt that the ointment did have a cooling and anti-swelling effect when applied on her arm, but there was too little ointment. Mom, go get some more from the little bitch. This little isn't enough. Bam! Xiao Mu violently kicked open the door with a loud bang. The mother and daughter in the room jumped in shock, and the ointment in their hands almost fell to the ground. Old Madame Chow glared at Arbor and stood up agitatedly. Why did you barge in? Dad's second uncle, she mutated. She's no longer human. Arbor took out a crossbow and aimed it at Xiao Wanwan with an icy expression. From the looks of it, this woman's incubation period was about to end. In 1 or 2 days she would completely mutate into a zombie. Old Madame Chow hit her in the room. That was a disregard for her own life and the lives of her entire family. Mom! Xiao Zhongbang stared at his mother dumbfounded. He was so angry that he didn't know what to say. This muddle-headed mother. No wonder she had been hiding in the room since yesterday. So she had secretly hidden Wenwan in the room. Old Madame Chow cried. Eldest brother, second brother, the person standing in front of you is your biological sister. You can't treat her like this. Ah! Arbor shot an arrow, but it didn't hit Chow Wenwan. Instead it was nailed to the cupboard door. Because Chow Wenwan's dodging speed was quite fast, Chow Mu couldn't help but be taken aback by this strange speed. Chow Zhongbang broke out in a cold sweat as he watched. He dragged his panic-stricken mother over and yelled impatiently, "Old mother, did Chow Wenwan scratch your hand?" "She wasn't caught," Arbor said coldly. "Her wound is deep, shallow and crooked. It's obvious that the pain was unbearable when she cut herself open." Madame Chow was really desperate for Chow Wenwan. She didn't even hesitate to cut her own hand to get Arbor's ointment. "Mother, Wenwan has mutated. Listen to me. She really can't stay here. Otherwise, it will harm our entire family." Second Uncle Chow also advised. "Second brother, are you still human? How dare you say such things? She's your sister." Madame Chow angrily slapped her son. Chow Wenwan hid beside the cupboard and looked at them with a grimace. Suddenly she shouted, "You're the mutated ones. You are the ones who deserve to die. Since no one wants to make things easy for me, I'll make you all die with me." With that, he pounced forward and grabbed the back of Old Lady Chow's head with both hands. Old Lady Chow was stunned. She didn't expect her daughter to attack her again. Seeing that Chow Wenwan's claws were less than an inch away from the back of the old lady's head, a spark suddenly exploded on her hand, causing her to immediately let out a miserable howl. She fell backwards, and the two bones in her hand were exposed outside the skin. Old Lady Chow's lips trembled as she turned back to look at her daughter in shock. There wasn't a trace of blood between her broken hands. She really wasn't alive. What a sin! Old Lady Chow was overcome with grief, and tears streamed down her face. She couldn't accept the fact that her flower-like daughter had turned into a zombie no matter what. Chapter 244. No, don't kill her. She's innocent and she didn't want to end up like this. She was harmed by someone else. Elderly Lady Chow pulled her son to her knees. "Let her go. Let your sister go. Mom, your son can't agree to this. Sister isn't human anymore. You can't let her go out and harm people." Chow Zhongbang wasn't ambiguous about this matter at all. Slap. Elderly Lady Chow slapped her son's face, her wrinkled old hand trembling nonstop in midair. She pointed at Chow Zhongbang and angrily roared, "Unfilial son." Chow Zhongbang's left cheek immediately turned red and swollen. It was clear how much strength the elderly lady had used to slap him. "Mom, have you gone senile?" Second Uncle Chow stomped his feet in anger. He pulled over his eldest brother, who was standing foolishly in front of his mother, and used his body to shield his angry mother as he roared, "Chow Wenwan is already dead. Eldest brother is also very sad. And I'm also very sad. But what can we do? We can't bring Chow Wenwan back from the dead. We can't let her harm you, Mom. She'll harm the whole family." The elderly lady pointed at the two brothers with a trembling finger. Her tears flowed endlessly, and she couldn't stop the grief in her heart. Her daughter, the daughter that she had raised lovingly and lovingly. Arbor rudely grabbed the elderly lady's arm and forcefully pushed her back. He sternly said, "Sunyang, send the elderly lady to the west wing to rest. Don't come out if there's nothing else." Sunyang's hands trembled slightly, and she hurriedly caught the elderly lady's tilted body. Half dragging and half pulling, she supported the shrieking elderly lady out the door. Chow Wenwan crawled up from the ground. Her head was crooked abnormally, and her bulging eyes stared intently at Arbor. Suddenly, she roared and pounced at him. Bang! Bang bang bang. The Crown Prince merely lifted his finger slightly, and several fire orbs were sent to Chow Wenjuan's side, where they exploded with a bang. Chow Wenjuan's face was blown beyond recognition. She couldn't even get close to Arbor. Chow Zhongbang looked at Chow Wenjuan's miserable state with a gloomy face, his fists tightly clenched together. Roar! Roar! Chow Wenjuan lay on the ground and let out an inhuman roar. The roar spread to the front hall and startled Wei Ziqin, who couldn't sit still. She hurriedly held Xiao Lin Er's hand and stood up. Xiao Yao hurriedly stopped the two of them and said, "Madam, it's better not to go over." Although she didn't know what happened to old Madam, Xiao Yao could guess that something big must have happened when she heard the commotion and saw Mrs. expression before she left. Madam was pregnant and it was inconvenient for her to move around. It was best not to join in the fun to avoid any accidents. However, how could Wei Ziqin sit still? She grabbed Xiao Yao's hand and said, "Don't worry, I won't go near. I'll just take a look from afar." With that said, she walked towards old Madam's room. As expected, she didn't go near. She just stood at the end of the corridor far away, and looked at old Madam's wide-open room door. Suddenly, a zombie with disheveled hair rushed out of the door. Her daughter also rushed out of the room with a crossbow. She had just aimed at the zombie's head when the crossbow in her little hand was snatched away by her husband with a smack. "Dad?" Arbor's little face darkened, and she looked up at Qiao Zhongbang. At a time like this, could it be that Dad wants to be heartless? Soft. Right. Our dear Qiao Mu looked at her father with disappointment. When Qiao Zhongbang saw that small gaze, it felt like the father and daughter's positions were reversed. His daughter looked like she was looking at some good-for-nothing child. The melancholy and disappointment in her gaze was simply brilliant. Chapter 245. Jojo. Don't do it yourself. Let Dad do it. However, Qiao Zhongbang, with a dark expression, suddenly raised the crossbow in his hand and shot an arrow at the head of Qiao Wenwan, who was running away screaming. He was so swift and decisive that he didn't seem like her indecisive, good-for-nothing father at all. Whoosh. The arrow immediately pierced Qiao Wenjuan's head and pulled her forward a few steps before she fell to the ground with a plop. Arbor's eyes curved slightly as he secretly glanced at his father. His father probably didn't want him to deal with this little ant, right? He was using his own method to protect his daughter. If this crime of killing his wife had to be shouldered by someone, then he, Qiao Zhongbang, would be the one to shoulder it. Even if Mom wasn't willing to forgive him for the rest of her life. Even if Mom blamed him for the rest of his life, Qiao Zhongbang reached out to stop Arbor as he ran forward with the crossbow and kicked Qiao Wenjuan's leg twice. Seeing that she didn't move, he finally sighed in relief. Second uncle went forward to check again before saying to Arbor and Qiao Zhongbang, "This is a serious matter. I don't know if Qiao Wenwan injured anyone when she snuck into the city. I'll go to the city lord's manor to report, and have the city lord send someone to clean up this corpse." Arbor nodded in agreement. Second uncle is right. Thank you for making this trip, second uncle. Second uncle hurriedly waved his hand and hurriedly left. Wei Ziqin, who was standing in the corridor with her heart on edge, took a deep breath and hurriedly walked over to the father and daughter. "Jojo Zhongbang, what's going on? Why did a zombie run out of this house? Are you guys okay?" Qiao Zhongbang smiled bitterly at his wife. Qiao Wenwan fell to the ground, and her face was a mess from the fire spirit's explosion. Wei Ziqin naturally didn't recognize who this person was. "Let's talk in the front yard." When Wei Ziqin found out that the corpse puppet just now was actually a mutated Qiao Wenwan, she couldn't help but be shocked. Wei Ziqin looked at her husband worriedly and asked, "Mom?" Qiao Zhongbang smiled bitterly and waved his hand. "Let her be." Soon, second uncle and city lord Gu rushed over with a team of people from the corpse disposal team and swiftly carried Qiao Wenwan away. Wei Ziqin stood up and looked at Mo Lian. "Little Mo, you must be hungry. I'm sorry that something like this happened at home." "It's all right, Auntie. No one wants this kind of thing to happen. You should persuade Uncle to console him. I think Uncle's mood won't be too good for the next 2 days." A certain crown prince walked past Qiao Mu and suddenly winked at her. "Good child, you're so considerate." Wei Ziqin smiled as she looked at the young man. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Arbor reached out a small hand at her mother's back. "I'm so angry. Mom. I'm your biological daughter. Okay? I'm the poor child who hasn't eaten a single grain of rice since I was born." Bam! Arbor sat down on the stool in a huff. A figure suddenly appeared next to the child, and before she could react, her small body was lifted high into the air. "Jojo, you must be tired. I'll carry you to the dining room." Prince Mo walked gracefully with the child in his arms and received the praising gazes of good young man from Qiao Mu and Qiao Mu. "Let's go wash our hands and eat." Wash your sister's hands. I'm not a child. Put me down, you jerk. Prince Mo secretly chuckled, but he hadn't taken 2 steps when he heard Duan Yu's voice from the door. Jojo, is Jojo home? Prince Mo turned around with Miss Chow in his arms and shot a murderous look at Duan Yu, who was running over. Untactful guy. Why did he come to join in the fun? Could Jojo's family's favorability be improved by just anyone? Don't even think about it. Humph. Chapter 246. Little Mo, eat more. Wei Ziqin kept putting food into Prince Mo's bowl, and didn't forget to call out to Duan Yu. Ayu itu. Xiao Lin watched as the food that originally belonged to her was placed into the 2 youths' bowls. She could only aggrievedly gnaw on the bun in her hand. Arbor felt even more aggrieved and exhausted. She wanted to eat a piece of meat, so her parents rushed to give meat to the 2 youths. She wanted to eat a mouthful of vegetables, so her parents took turns to make the 2 youths eat more vegetables. In the end, she wanted to drink a mouthful of soup, but her mother snatched the large soup ladle from her hand and eagerly ladled a large bowl for Prince Mo. How infuriating! How could there be such differential treatment? After finally finishing lunch with a stifled heart, the unscrupulous parents carried Xiao Lin and pulled Xiao Hu away. The child scowled as she bounced to the reception pavilion next door and sat down in an armchair. She stared at the approaching Duan Yu. Why are you still here? Don't the people from your sect need to go back? Prince Mo nodded in agreement and slowly walked to the child's side to sit down. Duan Yu felt like he was already used to the child's insults, so he didn't mind her cold attitude at all. He ran to her and placed a box in front of the child. For you. On the side, the crown prince immediately glared daggers at Duan Yu. This punk actually dared to use a gift to trick the little girl. The child opened the box and saw that it was 5 core ravaging thunders that could blow up half a mountain. Although her face was expressionless, the 2 youths could sense that much of the pressure around the child had dissipated. The child had always been very straightforward when it came to accepting gifts. She would silently accept them if they were given to her. You still want to be polite? Don't even think about it. I'm already giving you enough face by not leaving with the gift after accepting it. I'm going back to the Daybreak sect with them in the afternoon. Duan Yu pursed his lips. I probably won't be able to come out for 2 to 3 years. However, I heard that the 3 sects will have a competition every few years. We will still have a chance to meet again in the future. Oh. The child nodded. After saying so much, you only replied with an oh. How can we continue chatting happily like this? This child's expressionless face seemed to have a special skill that could kill a conversation. Okay, got it. Moichin raised his hand and picked up the child who was caught off guard. He turned around and waved his sleeves to send the guest off. You should go back and pack up so I won't send you off. Housekeeper, please send the guest out. This guy was overstepping his authority. Why do you act like you're the master of my house? The child reached out and punched him. He wanted to struggle again, but his little hand fell into Prince Mo's hand. The child laid on Prince Mo's shoulder, and his round eyes glanced at the miserable Duan Yu one last time. After some thought, he extended his other small paw and symbolically waved it at him. Bon voyage. Whoa, why did I read such heartless words from her eyes? A smooth journey ended just like that? He still had a lot of farewell words to say before he was forcefully sent off. Was this really okay? At least he should say that he might miss him in the next few years. If only time could stop at this moment. The tall and frivolous youth stood by the door and warmly looked in the direction the little girl left. Under his long eyelashes, a faint smile appeared in his clear peach blossom eyes. Just you wait, damn girl. Chapter 247. Mo youngster lowered his head to glance at the box the child was hugging. With a light snort, he reached out to take the box from her and tossed it onto a stool at the side. The child glared at him with round eyes. Stinky brat, you're too rude. Why are your eyes so round? Prince Mo chuckled and sat down with the child in his arms. No matter how round your eyes are, you're still an expressionless little stoic. So what if she's stoic? I love stoic faces. Humph, I also love stoic faces. Prince Mo nodded in agreement. He turned the child around to face him and looked at her with a grin. If we're separated for 3 to 5 years, will you miss me? The child raised her chin awkwardly. I won't. Prince Mo broke into laughter. He shifted the child's awkward face back and planted a kiss on her forehead. I'll miss Jojo, I'll miss you a lot. I'll miss you a lot, a lot. I'll miss you a lot. The child's expression was dazed for a moment. Being dazed was a huge improvement compared to being expressionless. Dazed was also a type of expression, Crown Prince thought. The Crown Prince swiped through the air and stuffed a large bag of jingling spirit stones into the child's arms. He rubbed her stoic little face and said, There are 500 spirit stones here. It should be enough for you to use for 3 to 5 years. Let that golem live. When I'm not here, let that guy talk to you in my place. You know, Jojo, you have to talk more. Don't stop talking just because you think it's tiring. How can talking tire you? Look at this child. If no one talked to her, she would probably be mute for the entire day. Oh, I've said so much and you only freaking said, oh. Darling Chow, you can really kill a conversation at any time. You're not allowed to say it. Mo youngster smiled helplessly and pressed his forehead against hers. The child rolled his eyes and reached out to take out the little golem, placing a spirit stone in its stomach. In less than a second, the noisy golem jumped up and danced as it sang, Little master, little master, little master, you're awesome, little master, you're finally not stingy. You're the stingy one, your whole family is stingy. I gave it a name. Kid reached out and pressed on the golem's head. The young man smiled and looked at her. What's your name? His name is Debe. Oh, little master has given me a name. Big Treasure. My name is Big Treasure. The golem waved its small arms and legs as it spun around on the spot. Emolian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looked down at the child and smiled. Why are you called Debeo? The child tilted his head and blinked his big, watery eyes. I don't know. I just thought of it. Emolian couldn't help but smile and teased her. Is it because you're called Little Bao that you call it Big Bao? The child's eyes suddenly widened as he stared at the youth in front of him in a daze, not reacting for a long time. Emolian couldn't help but panic a little. She hugged her and shook her a little. Jojo, what's wrong with Jojo? Arbor snapped out of his daze and looked at him blankly. What did you just call me? Jojo. Arbor shook her head. Little Bao? What was so strange about the name Little Bao? Why was the child's expression so strange? Jojo. It's nothing. Arbor nodded in a daze. It's nothing, it's nothing. Although Emolian was a little puzzled, she didn't continue asking since she had recovered. Arbor raised her hand to keep the bag of spirit stones and looked at Crown Prince. Are we leaving tomorrow? Prince Mo nodded and looked at the child with a serious expression. Tonight we'll have a reunion dinner with Uncle and Auntie and say goodbye. Arbor's little face instantly darkened. Chapter 248. As expected, Father and Mother Chow enjoyed dinner to their heart's content. Second Uncle Chow even told Arbor to bring out 3 jars of bamboo leaf wine and drink 10 or so cups with the youth. Seeing that the youth didn't hold back at all, Second Uncle Chow actually had the idea of competing with the youth's alcohol tolerance. In the end, Second Uncle drank until he collapsed. Arbor helplessly pursed her lips. Second Uncle, don't casually compete with others if your alcohol tolerance isn't good. Look at how you collapsed when the second jar was just opened. But the youth's expression didn't change at all. Seeing that it was getting late, Father and Mother Chow enthusiastically invited the youth to stay the night. Arbor felt that something wasn't right, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She then thought about what the youth said earlier and racked her brain. Suddenly, a light bulb lit up, and she finally sensed that something wasn't right. He was a crown prince who had nothing to do with old Chow's family. What was there to reunite with old Chow's family? He even had the glorified excuse of having a reunion dinner with Uncle and Auntie. Darling Chow secretly glared at the crown prince. Coincidentally, the crown prince sensed it and turned his head back. He flashed her a smile, and it was as if the sky was filled with stars. That face was truly blinding. How infuriating. Every time she ate with the crown prince, it was as if the baby had been picked up from the streets. Mother and father's attention was completely not on their own daughter. Second Uncle Chow hugged the half-open jar of wine as he sprawled on the table and murmured in a daze, "Bamboo leaf wine, bamboo leaf wine." Wei Ziqing was overjoyed, and she hurriedly instructed Sun Yang to help Second Uncle back to rest. Arbor thought for a moment, then took out 6 peaches and 2 leaves from the storage talisman and placed them on the table. The peach trees in the paradise bore fruit very slowly. After so long, she had only plucked 6 peaches, and they had been stored in the storage talisman. There are fruits after the meal. 1 each. Eat. Peaches. The little foodie immediately jumped up and was the first to jump to Arbor's side. Reaching out to grab one of the peaches. "Yo, this peach grows well." Xiao Zhongbang immediately laughed. "Father, eat this leaf first, then eat this peach." Arbor handed the leaves and peaches to his father and said to his mother, "Mother, you too. I've thought about it. Father, your profound veins are damaged, causing your profound energy to flow out completely. But that doesn't mean that you won't be able to sense profound energy from now on." Arbor looked at his father with a serious expression and said, "This leaf can increase a normal person's perception and profound strength. Who knows, it might even help you reconstruct your profound veins. Logically speaking, with Mother's condition, it is impossible for her to reopen her profound veins, but there is no harm in eating this leaf. At least it can strengthen her body." The couple stared blankly at their daughter, especially Xiao Zhongbang, who listened to his daughter's explanation as if he was listening to a fairy tale. He couldn't help but stutter when he opened his mouth. "Daughter, what you mean that this leaf can help father sense mystic energy again? It should be possible. Father, give it a try. If it's useful, it won't be too late to eat this peach." The energy contained in this peach was very rich. Although the amount wasn't much, it should be enough for father to advance. This little leaf was actually comparable to the pulse-regulating pill. Xiao Zhongbang didn't say anything else and swallowed the leaf in one gulp. Wei Ziqing also ate the leaf. Soon, Xiao Zhongbang looked at his daughter with joy at the turn of events. "Jojo, father felt it. Father felt the recovery of profound energy, the awakening of profound veins. It seems that I can really reconstruct my profound veins." Arbor nodded. Father's condition is equivalent to the second time he has opened his profound veins and completely reconstructed his profound veins. Chapter 249. Her premonition wasn't wrong. The leaf she snatched from the sapling was indeed useful to Xiao Zhongbang. "Daughter, father has to go into closed-door cultivation immediately. Take care of little Mo and arrange for him to rest." Xiao Zhongbang left this sentence and left in a hurry. Arbor couldn't help but want to roll her eyes. At such a critical juncture, father still couldn't abandon little Prince Mo and even instructed her to take good care of him, as if she had mistreated him. "Mother, what do you think?" Arbor looked towards her mother. However, Wei Ziqing had an odd expression as she looked back at Arbor and asked, "Jojo, those mystic meridians. Are mystic meridians like thin and weak meridians? Can you feel a trace of special energy slowly swimming within?" Arbor's eyes suddenly lit up. "Mother, you've triggered your mystic meridians?" "Should be." Wei Ziqing nodded in astonishment. She knew her own body best. Back then, her family's miss had once said that she had no hope of triggering her mystic meridians in this lifetime, and could only settle down as a normal person. Thus, she had never rashly asked to become a mystic cultivator. But today actually. On the side, Xiao, whose mouth had long gaped open so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Today was truly too dazzling. In the beginning, eldest uncle felt that his mystic meridians were recovering, and had hope of successfully repairing them. Now it was even more exaggerated. Eldest aunt, who had never cultivated mystic energy, actually said that she had successfully triggered her mystic meridians. Just that tiny leaf, a leaf. Xiao, who hurriedly threw himself to Arbor's side and shook her arm, saying, eldest sister, do you still have that leaf? Give big brother one." Arbor couldn't help but laugh as she looked at the dignified child. "You dummy, you're already a mystic cultivator. You don't need to sense mystic energy anymore. If you just want to increase your mystic energy in advance, eating peaches will do too." Peaches. Xiao, who had a flash of inspiration and hurriedly picked up a peach. He stared dumbfoundedly at Xiao Lin, who had already finished half of it. Big sister, little sister has already eaten half of the peach. Why isn't she having any reaction? Arbor couldn't help but laugh when he saw how his sister wished she could bury her head in the peach. Little Lin-er is still too young. Opening her profound meridians now wouldn't do her any good. It's better to slow down and wait until you're 7 or 8 years old. Since he had yet to trigger his meridians or temper his body, he was naturally unable to absorb the energy contained within the peach juice. Therefore, this glutton was the true reckless waste of natural resources. Eating peaches was only to satisfy one's appetite. Sister. This peach. Xiao Lin-er's little hand, which was covered in peach juice, touched the second peach. She was reluctant to let go, but her eyes looked pitifully at her older sister. Arbor was about to die from her laughter. He shook his head and said, "Big sister doesn't want to eat anymore. I'll save it for you. But you're not allowed to eat it today. Save it for tomorrow after lunch." Xiao Lin Baobao's eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly reached out to take Tao Zi and smiled sweetly at her sister. "Thank you, sister. This is for you." Arbor stuffed the last peach into the crown prince's hands. He turned to his mother and said, "Mother, you should also return to your room and go into seclusion. Remember to eat the peach. It'll help you advance. I'll take Xiao Lin-er to sleep now." After sending his sister back to her bedroom and settling her down, classmate Arbor brought the crown prince out of the loft and pattered out. "Jojo, how about you owe me a gift in return first? When we meet again, I'll give it to you." The crown prince put away the peach with a grin. He followed behind the child with her short legs and slowly walked step by step. Gift in return? A certain person's handsome face appeared in front of the little fellow's eyes. She angrily turned her head and continued to patter forward. "Young man, you're taking advantage of me." Chapter 250. Under the night sky, a crimson light flashed past. As the light spread, the crown prince and Xiao Mu looked up at the same time. Arbor suddenly felt her body lighten. She looked helplessly at the crown prince, who had reached out to lift her up. She gritted her teeth. A certain child muttered, "I want to grow taller. But I won't let him carry me. Jojo, I will miss you very much." The crown prince pressed his forehead against hers and softly muttered, "Don't worry, I will remember your gift. When we meet again, I will definitely return it to you, okay?" "Okay, your head. What kind of gift is that? I don't really want it." "Okay." The crown prince agreed on behalf of a certain child with a smile. You can even talk to yourself to this extent. Shameless fellow, I am so angry." After a red light flashed past in midair, a slightly shorter black figure suddenly appeared behind the crown prince. It was a young boy of about 11 or 12 years old. He was completely different from Qiao Hu's dignified appearance. This young boy was cold and handsome, and his eyes were sharp. The strangest thing was the pair of eyes that he cast over. They were naturally different and they were gold and red. Xiao Mu's face was filled with curiosity as she watched, completely ignoring the young man's taut, handsome face that refused to let anyone see him. "This is little 7. Prince Mo glanced at the child behind him with a headache. Look at this impatient child. She had already said that she would leave early tomorrow morning, but she couldn't wait to come. "You are that flaming golden dragon." The child's eyes lit up as she sized up 7th Yan's head. The towering and terrifying dragon head had actually become a human head now. The young boy glanced at her and looked away with a snort. His attitude is bad. The child turned her head to look at the crown prince with a stoic face. She didn't even realize that she was complaining. "Can I beat him?" The crown prince almost laughed out loud. He shook his head regretfully. "You can't beat him." The child made an "oh" sound and muttered to herself, "If I can't beat him, then forget it." The crown prince. Hearing this, the young boy turned to glare at her. This little brat meant that if she could beat him, she would give him a good beating? Audacious, impudent human. The young man turned his head and glared at the child. The child rolled his eyes and glared back at him, unwilling to be outdone. The crown prince held the child's waist with one hand and carried the child into the loft. Could it be that the auras of these two little fellows were incompatible? Why were they staring at each other like black-eyed chickens when they first met? It was better not to put the two of them together. "We can't stay over tonight. Emolian put the child on the bed and patted her forehead with regret. Go to sleep. Be good and close your eyes. I'll leave after I see you fall asleep. Arbor, there's no way I can fall asleep if you stare at me like that. The Crown Prince patted her small body and said softly, Don't worry, I won't forget the gift in return. We'll meet again soon. When that time comes. The Crown Prince flicked his sleeves. Xiaomu vaguely smelled a faint calming medicinal fragrance. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and she actually fell asleep. Emolian sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her in a daze for a while under the cold moonlight through a thin veil. Then he got up and left. The door to the room closed with a creak. The young man's tall and slender back was elongated under the cold moonlight. He looked lonely and elegant like snow. Seventh Yan's figure flashed, and he transformed into a dragon and flew into the sky, circling and dancing under the cold moonlight. The Crown Prince leaped up and quietly stood on the dragon's back. He turned his head and gazed deeply at the small courtyard. Although he wasn't there, his heart yearned for it. We'll meet again, Jojo. The flaming golden dragon swept across the sky, illuminating the pitch-black horizon and sprinkling a sea of golden flames. Chapter 251. By the time Arbor woke up, it was already late in the morning. Hugging the thin blanket, she sat on the bed with a slightly lost expression. She actually slept quite well last night, but for some reason she felt uneasy. In her hazy dream, she seemed to have seen the Crown Prince's figure leaving on a dragon. The youth's aloof figure turned into a red dot, and the farther he went, the more intense it became in her eyes. It was like a blazing inferno that could burn through thousands of layers of ice and thousands of miles of snowy peaks. He left. Duan Yu also ran away, master, eldest senior sister, and everyone else left. It seemed that in that instant, the surrounding air quieted down, and she was the only one left in the world. A faint sense of loneliness lingered in her heart, unable to be brushed away for a long time. It was as if, in the past, she was also abandoned by someone important. Good morning, master. Master is as beautiful as a flower today. Good. The silence was completely broken by the golem's noisy voice. Sister. Xiao Lin used her chubby body to knock open the door with a bang and gave her a big grin. Arbor jumped down from the bed and swept away the gloom in her heart. She pulled her sister's hand and said with a smile, Go wash up. Master. Master, wait for me. The golem bounced and chased after the two sisters. Xiao Lin looked back curiously. Sister, that little dog can talk. That's right, he's called Big Bao. Not only can he talk, but he can also do many things. Arbor half carried the chubby Xiao Lin and led her over the tall threshold to walk down the attic. When she pushed open the attic's door, a ray of sunlight shone in from outside, so warm that she couldn't help but squint her eyes. Arbor paused and took out a common communication jade tablet for the hidden pavilion and night pavilion from her pocket. A line of words quickly appeared on it. Reporting to Miss Royal Guard Nian from the vassal king of Annan's estate has arrived at Guanlan City and is currently rushing back to the vassal king's estate. Arbor took out a talisman pen and left a line of words on the communication jade tablet. Continue to keep an eye on him. Report back immediately once the Royal Guard meets with that commandery princess. Sister, what are you writing? Xiao Lin blinked curiously. Sister is writing about how to punish bad people. The corners of Arbor's mouth slowly curled up into a sneer. With a swipe of his hand, he grabbed Nian Kuei's strand of life soul. The vassal king of Annan's estate's Huiyan, right? Do you think you'll be fine just like that? I've never met you before, but you dared to harm me. It seems that there's no need for you to exist anymore. Baby Qiao's section break. The galloping horses galloped rapidly on the main road of Guanlan City, startling the pedestrians on both sides of the road and forcing them to give way. The people who lived in the royal capital had long since recognized the attire of the high officials in the royal residence. When they saw the royal guards of the vassal king of Annan's estate galloping past, no one dared to say anything and obediently dodged to the side. The members of the vassal king of Annan's estate were used to being arrogant in Guanlan City, so no one dared to offend them. Otherwise, they would definitely suffer. Nian Kuei's face was dark as he gripped the reins tightly with both hands and rushed back to the Wang Fu. When the horse arrived at the entrance of the estate, Nian Kuei leaped off the horse and tossed the reins to the manservant before hastily heading inside. He had to immediately report to the commandery princess that His Highness the Crown Prince had actually left the capital in the middle of the night to meet with that lowly commoner girl in private. He had even extracted a strand of Nian Kuei's soul for that girl. Utterly abominable. He had to ask the commandery princess to step in and take back that strand of his soul. Chapter 252. When Nian Kuei was led inside, Commandery Princess Hui, and was looking at herself in the mirror and trying on 2 new pieces of jewelry. Hearing the footsteps, the commandery princess did not even look up and asked nonchalantly, "Is it done? How is the little bitch's reaction after eating the medicine I gave her?" Nian Kuei's expression was a bit unsightly, and he suddenly knelt down on one knee. "Commandery princess, this subordinate was incompetent." Commandery Princess Hui was startled, and she abruptly slammed her hand on the dressing table. She angrily glared at the kneeling Nian Kuei through the mirror. "You mean you failed?" Nian Kuei was a level 7 body cultivator. How could he fail when he was sent to a small town to deal with a commoner? Hui could not accept this kind of failure at all. She glared at Nian Kuei coldly and angrily. What exactly happened? Nian Kuei did not even dare to look up. He organized his words and quickly reported the matter. Hui-An's face alternated between green and white. She pondered for a long time before coldly asking with a dark face, "You're saying that Brother Crown Prince cares about a 7 or 8-year-old brat?" Nian Kuei nodded repeatedly. "That's right. His Highness the Crown Prince secretly left the capital for this girl, so Commandery Princess must already know about this. You ran into Brother Crown Prince in Shijiao City." Hui-An's delicate face was so dark that water could drip from it. "Yes. Good. Good. Commandery Princess Hui-An clenched her teeth and cheered repeatedly. She instantly broke a jade bracelet woven with gold threads in her hand. Brother Crown Prince treated her like she was nothing and had never treated her well. She observed that his usual behavior kept people at arm's length, so she thought that he treated all women the same as he treated her. He was cold, noble and unpredictable, like a clear stream in the mountains. He was so aloof that no woman could get close to him. However, she did not expect him to do something so outrageous. He abandoned state affairs, left the capital overnight, and disappeared for so many days just to see a commoner girl from a small town. She could not understand. She could not accept or agree with him. Brother Crown Prince's actions broke the fragile heart of a young girl. Hui-An abruptly slapped the broken jade bracelet in her hand and said with gritted teeth, "Nian Kuei, I want you to bring another group of people to Shijiao City. This time I'm going to kill this bitch. She doesn't know what's good for her and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Did she think that a slut like her would be able to become a phoenix one day? I will never let her get what she wants." "Princess." The Crown Prince extracted a strand of my soul and gave it to the young lady. "I'm afraid I'm not up to the task. Princess, please help me plead with the Crown Prince and ask for my soul back." Hui-An's eyes suddenly widened. From the mirror, she could see that guard Nian, who had been chattering, suddenly swelled up like a bulging ball. "No!" Commandery Princess Hui-An simply could not imagine the impact of a 7th-layer body cultivator's self-detonation at such a close distance. She took a step forward intending to escape. Nian Kuei's body suddenly exploded. The loud noise even traveled out of the vassal king of Annan's estate and shook half of the capital. Whether it was the peddlers setting up their stalls, the people chatting loudly with their neighbors, or the hurried passers-by on the street, all of them froze in that instant and looked back in shock in the direction of the vassal king of Annan's estate. The earth trembled continuously from the tremors. The terrifying impact of the explosion destroyed more than half of the commandery princess's boudoir in the center of the vassal king of Annan's estate. Even many trees in the back garden were forcefully snapped. Chapter 253. In the southern study of the Eastern Palace, a heavy atmosphere spread among the officials. The officials looked at each other as they watched His Highness the Crown Prince, who was reading memorials with his head lowered, sitting behind the desk. No one wanted to be the first to speak up. "I heard that everyone has been quite lively recently. Quite a few memorials to impeach me have been sent to the Queen Dowager." The Crown Prince looked up at everyone as he flipped through the memorials. The Marquis of Stability, Zhao Shang, stood outside the crowd and looked up at the sky with an aloof expression. He was taut and didn't say a word. Behind the Marquis of Stability was naturally a group of people from the Crown Prince's faction led by him. They were all shooting murderous looks at their colleagues around them. "Who told you to be smug and jump around?" "Humph." The Marquis of Jiajing, Su Pingyong, stood next to Zhao Shang and subconsciously wiped the sweat on his forehead with his sleeve. "Censor Zhao, Censor Huang. I heard that the two of you sent 18 memorials to impeach the Queen Dowager in the past few days. The imperial censors led by you have truly worked hard and rendered great service." The Crown Prince tossed his brush and asked coldly, "How should we thank you?" "Your Highness, please calm your anger." The officials trembled as they knelt in salute. Censor Zhao was nearly 70 years old and his temples were grizzled. He knelt in front of the desk with his back straight and his head held high as he saluted. "Your Highness," the Crown Prince set aside a pile of state affairs and left the capital for so many days without saying a word. "This old official has indeed initiated a joint effort to invite many imperial censors to impeach your Highness. If your Highness wants to blame us, this old official is willing to bear all the responsibility and accept any beating or punishment. Even if you want this old official to resign and leave the capital, this old official still has to say it. Your Highness's actions are indeed inappropriate. The great king went to Mount Hong to pray for the people and entrusted state affairs to your Highness. How can your Highness act rashly and ignore state affairs?" The Crown Prince stared at the old man for a while before snorting. The old officials who were on good terms with Censor Zhao all broke out in cold sweat for the old man. This Crown Prince looked gentle and kind on the surface, but in reality, he was very eccentric when it came to handling matters. It was very likely that he had secretly dealt with this old man. He even dared to make a move on the great king's favorite consort, let alone an old man. "Let them take a look." Crown Prince unexpectedly didn't get angry. Instead, he tossed out this cold sentence. Xiao 11Z immediately stepped forward and handed out something like a list, as well as a blueprint. The ministers passed it around and read it. Everyone was surprised. So His Highness received news that a large amount of supplies had appeared in Qinghe town. That's why he immediately led his men there. The soldiers from the south camp sent by His Highness the Crown Prince will be able to transport the food and supplies back in 2 days. Everyone was overjoyed, but they also looked at each other. After carefully looking at the blueprint, their faces became more and more ashamed. This monarch has seen the construction of Shizhou City's defenses. Based on this foundation, we plan to first build large-scale fortifications in the various major cities, with the capital as the center, and expand outwards. This process should take several years, but once completed, it will definitely be beneficial to the people and the country. As the Crown Prince spoke, everyone crowded around the blueprint and scrambled to read it. A moment later, the group of officials hurriedly knelt and begged for forgiveness, especially the old officials who had impeached the Crown Prince countless times. Their faces were filled with shame. So it turned out the Crown Prince had left the capital to do something big. See, without a word, the food had been transported back. After inspecting the construction of Shizhou City's defenses, he also had a plan for the future defenses of Mo Kingdom for the next several years. This subject is ashamed. The Crown Prince raised his phoenix eyes and coldly swept his gaze over the group of officials. "Rise. This monarch hopes that all of you will think carefully before you do anything in the future. Don't be hot-headed and be used by others for nothing." This subject was muddle-headed. Before Censor Zhao could kneel and beg for forgiveness, the Crown Prince waved his hand at him. Censor Zhao was about to speak with shame on his face when a loud sound suddenly spread through half of Guanlan City. Mo Lian's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 254. Your Highness, Your Highness. The steward eunuch, Gong Chang'an, ran inside in a panic and rolled to the ground. "Something big has happened, Your Highness. Just now, someone from the vassal king of Anan's estate self-detonated and attacked Commandery Princess Huiyan. Apparently she's heavily injured. The vassal king of Anan has sent people to the palace to invite several royal physicians to the estate to save her." The Crown Prince's expression was indifferent. He only nodded slightly and waved his hand to dismiss the steward eunuch. All the officials looked at each other without saying anything. He Qizheng, I'll leave the construction of the fortifications to you. The crown prince looked at a dark-skinned man in his 50s. This person was the right assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, He Qizheng, He Tian's father. He Qizheng cupped his hands in acknowledgement, his square face brimming with righteousness. Everyone secretly looked back at the Minister of Works's fecal face and silently gulped. The crown prince directly bypassed the minister and handed the task to the right assistant minister, He Qizheng. His attitude was simply too obvious. Just as they said, don't go overboard. Besides, our crown prince wasn't someone to be trifled with. This lord's temperament was perverse and extremely straightforward. Moreover, the connections in his hands were perhaps much more than they imagined. The Marquis of Jiajing Su Pingyong, who usually liked to smooth things over, wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He had a premonition that since the Minister of Works and the left assistant minister were jumping around so fiercely, it would be their turn to suffer next. In a flash, the officials all withdrew. The crown prince flipped through the memorial to the throne next to him and slightly raised his head to look at Huifeng, who had swiftly entered. How is it? Reporting to your highness. Huifeng cupped his hands and quickly reported. Commandery Princess Hui, and was sitting in front of the dressing mirror at the time. After Nian Kuei self-detonated at close range, Commandery Princess Hui, and was injured by the lens, and her face was unrecognizable from the explosion. She lost her sight in her left eye. She actually didn't die? The crown prince's voice was slightly surprised. His little fellow was a black-hearted and ruthless little thing. She deliberately made Nian Kuei return to Hui An's side before crushing his soul, and causing it to self-detonate without hesitation. It was inevitable that Hui An would suffer the consequences of her own actions. However, the crown prince didn't expect that Hui An wouldn't die from the explosion at such a close range. The princess used a 4th-level defensive profound weapon at the critical moment. Huifeng said, although she still can't withstand Nian Kuei's self-detonation, her life is saved. Of course, that level 4 defensive profound artifact was definitely completely destroyed and could no longer be used. What did the vassal king of Anan say? The crown prince grabbed a cup of warm tea and held it loosely in his hand, his gaze incomparably sharp. The vassal king of Anan has just dispatched several hidden guards out of the capital. Deal with it. The crown prince de-emphasized, if the vassal king of Anan is smart, he should know what to investigate and what not to investigate. The crown prince's voice was clearly so indifferent, but Huifeng's heart inexplicably tightened. If the vassal king of Anan dared to provoke His Highness the crown prince, that would absolutely be an extremely unwise move. Your Highness, how should we deal with the matter of the Minister of Works and the left assistant minister inciting the imperial censors? We feel that he is somewhat unfit for the position of minister, so it would be more appropriate for him to abdicate the position to a worthy person. The crown prince's expression was cold and apathetic. Last time, the youngest brother of the Minister of Works family obtained a lucrative position from the great king. Their entire Huang family profited quite a bit from the construction of the canals in Meilong City. Huifeng immediately understood. This subordinate will immediately instruct the Night Pavilion members to organize the previously collected information and hand it to those imperial censors. The crown prince's phoenix eyes flashed, and a faint smile flitted across his pursed lips. Chapter 255. The next day, the youngest brother of the Minister of Works took advantage of his position to send all the details of the corruption and fraud case to the imperial censors in multiple copies. The imperial censors, led by Censor Zhao, all exploded in anger. They sent impeachment memorials to the crown prince as if they didn't cost anything. The Minister of Works was caught unprepared by this matter, and was too overwhelmed to fend for himself, so he naturally didn't have the energy to find trouble with the crown prince. On the other side, the crown prince sat in the study and quietly listened to Huifeng's report. The vassal king of Anan personally led a team to escort the commandery princess out of the city today. He said he was going to find the ghost physician of the ghost sect to try his best to save the commandery princess's face. Huifeng calmly said, but the imperial physicians also said that even if the commandery princess tried his best to save her face, Her eyes wouldn't be able to be saved. The Crown Prince nodded, no longer in the mood to listen to Hui An's matter with a disinterested expression. The hidden guards from the vassal king of Anan's estate who went out of the city to investigate the reason for Nian Kuei's self-detonation have all been disposed of by the hidden pavilion. The vassal king of Nan probably understood your highness's intentions and didn't send anyone else to investigate. The Crown Prince sneered. At least he's tactful. If he dared to set his sights on the little girl again, he wouldn't mind sending this sworn brother of the great king off on his way. Your Highness, the provisions delivered by the South Camp soldiers just arrived this morning. Very good. Have Song Yuan from the Ministry of Revenue properly arrange this batch of supplies. The Crown Prince stood up and walked outside as he coldly asked, how has the great king been doing in Mount Hong recently? Hui Feng lowered his head, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The great king really isn't doing well. With your highness making things difficult for the great king at every turn, it'd be strange if the great king was happy. 12th Prince, be careful. His Highness the Crown Prince is discussing politics in the southern study. You can't barge in so rudely. The wet nurse's anxious voice came from afar. Big brother, big brother. A small purple-red figure strenuously stepped over the tall study threshold and rolled toward his big brother's feet. He hugged his big brother's thigh and cried, Big brother, big brother. Grand Tutor Li hit my study partner Song Xiaotai. Big brother, you have to stand up for me. Hit him for me. Hit him. Hui Feng. The Crown Prince looked speechlessly at his younger brother who was rolling and crying at his feet. He raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man with a pale face who lifted his green robe and bowed in greeting. Your humble servant greets your highness the Crown Prince. Grand Tutor, please rise. The Crown Prince massaged his temples with a headache. He scooped up a certain brat who was clinging to his leg and refused to let go. Holding the brat on his leg, he looked helplessly at the elegant Grand Tutor in green robes. Grand Tutor, what's going on? Without waiting for Grand Tutor Li to speak, the 5-year-old brat Mou took the initiative to complain, Big brother. It's him. He hit my study partner Song Xiaotai. He was being unreasonable. I don't want to study anymore. Hui Feng. His little highness is testing his big brother's patience. Grand Tutor Li is the most knowledgeable person in Imperial College. You even taught me your big brother. The Crown Prince lifted the child up in exasperation and looked with amusement at the oval-shaped red bun face from crying. What did you do that the Grand Tutor is punishing you and even implicating the third young master of the Minister of Revenue? Your Highness the Crown Prince, it's Xiaoye's fault. It was Xiaotai who was playful and took his 12th Highness to skip class. The 7-year-old Song Xiaotai lowered his head in shame. Mou immediately jumped up and covered his head with one hand. He shook his head and said, Big brother, yours head hurts from studying every day. Can I not study anymore? The Crown Prince smiled gently at Mou. Not only will you have a headache today, but your hands will also hurt. And your butt will hurt even more. Someone bring me a ferule. Xiao 11Z covered his mouth with his hand. Chapter 256. Little Mou's hand was hit twice by His Highness the Crown Prince, and he cried for a full 15 minutes. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he stopped wailing and sniffled as he wiped his tears with a small handkerchief. At the same time, he secretly peeked at his big brother, who was reviewing memorials behind the desk. Give His 12th Highness some water to moisten his throat. The Crown Prince put down his brush and instructed coldly. Little Mou felt a prickling pain in his red hand when he held the cup, and his tears fell pitter-patter. When Big Brother got angry, he didn't even look at Little Brother. So scary. Little Mou shuffled his little butt and jogged to the Crown Prince's side. He hugged his thigh and begged to be petted, whining pitifully, Big brother, I was wrong. I'll definitely study hard in the future and won't drag Xiaotai out to play anymore. I won't contradict the Grand Tutor anymore. I'll definitely be obedient and won't cause trouble. I'll be a good child. Don't be angry, Big brother. The Crown Prince glanced back at him and reached out to place him on the desk. He looked at little Mou with a serious expression and said, You have to remember. Big brother's burden will be handed over to you sooner or later. In the future, mother will also need you to take care of her. You have to be a responsible man. He muttered to himself for a while before saying softly, Big brother will leave sooner or later. Little Mou hugged his big brother's arm and shouted, No, I won't let big brother leave. Big brother, where are you going? Take your with you. And Mother Empress, let's go together. There was no way to communicate with the little brat. The crown prince flicked the little brat's head. In 2 days, big brother will test your homework. If it's still a mess, just you wait. You made your big brother lose face in front of the grand tutor. Big brother will definitely make you lose even more face. Little Mou's round face was completely scrunched up. He originally wanted to pretend to cry, but when his gaze fixed on a corner of the desk, his voice abruptly stopped. The little brat crawled forward on the desk, his little hand reaching for a fresh and red peach at the corner of the desk. Big brother, is this for you or to eat? Not really. Prince Mou mercilessly took the peach from Mou's hand. His face was calm, as if he did not realize that he was bullying a child. Mou's eyes suddenly widened as he turned his head to look at his elder brother in disbelief. Usually if there was anything delicious or fun, Big brother would give it to him. As long as he asked Big brother would definitely give it to him. Why didn't she give him Tower today? This must be a fake Big brother. Big brother, I want to eat peaches. Mou continued to work hard for his own welfare. No. The crown prince stood up and locked the delicious-looking pink and tender peach into a jade box. Mou's eyes instantly widened. Big brother was so stingy as to lock a peach in a jade box. She wouldn't even spare him a glance? Big brother doesn't like you anymore. This piece of news was like a bolt from the blue, reverberating in Mou's mind. The child suddenly felt that there was nothing left to live for. He collapsed on the desk with his arms and legs spread out. When Emolien turned around and saw the little brat's state, he almost burst out laughing. He walked over and nudged his little brother to the side of the desk. Don't obstruct Big brother's governance. Big brother, why can't you eat that peach? The little brat inquired. Chapter 257. Prince Mou completely ignored his younger brother's paralyzed appearance and chuckled softly as he flipped through the memorial in his hand. Because, Darling Chow gave this to your big brother. Mou scrambled up from the desk and blinked, looking like he wanted to get to the bottom of this. Who's Darling Chow? She's 2 years older than you. She's a little girl. Prince Mou didn't even look up. Then what about her studies? Has she studied as much as I have? Mou sat on the crown prince's desk and continued to ask curiously. The crown prince looked up and glanced at him with a smile. She has studied. She's not like you who has to be chased and beaten by teachers all day long. Mou was unconvinced. The grand tutor also praised me for my talent in studying. If I worked a little harder, I'd be even more impressive. Oh, is that so? The crown prince smiled sardonically. Of course. Mou simply crawled up and stood on the crown prince's desk. He put his hands on his hips and faced his big brother. Big brother, if Darling Chow doesn't study well, will you also beat her? Hui Feng felt like the brothers' conversation was hilarious. I won't. The crown prince set down a memorial and picked up another one. He lowered his eyes and continued to flip through it, completely ignoring his younger brother's stupefied expression. Mou huffed and shouted, Why? Big brother. Aren't you treating her too differently? Mou was very unconvinced. You're a boy and she's a girl. You can take a beating but she can't. The crown prince had an indifferent expression. Xiao 11Z really couldn't hold it in and sneaked a look at Mou, who looked like he'd been dealt a blow with his large dark eyes. Big brother, you're biased. Mou was angry. He tilted his head in thought and suddenly asked, Big brother, is Darling Chow my sister-in-law? If she wasn't his sister-in-law, Mou couldn't figure out why his big brother treated her so well. How could she not be beaten if she didn't study well? Unlike him, not only would he be scolded by the grand tutor if he didn't study well, but he would also be beaten by his big brother. Just thinking about it made him feel like Yuer was adopted. Prince Mo's hand that was flipping through the memorial paused for a moment. He raised his head to look at Mou's solemn expression and couldn't help but laugh. You've become smarter. Mou suddenly realized that when Big Brother said this, There seemed to be the light of shattered stars flickering in his eyes. He seemed to be in an extremely good mood. Little Mo hurriedly jumped into his big brother's arms. Big brother, when can I see sister-in-law? Do you still have any more peaches with you? Will she be willing to let me eat it? When Huifeng heard this as he walked out the door, he almost tripped and left with an exasperated expression. We will meet, the Crown Prince murmured softly, his voice as gentle as water. Crown Prince's family division line Darling Qiao spent the past 2 months comfortably. Without any unnecessary people to disturb her, she would spend the day with her family and go into seclusion to practice martial arts at night. She even asked City Lord Gu to buy blank talisman paper from all over the city. In this way, he managed to purchase more than 500 blank talisman papers and exchange them for 50 kilograms of rice. The 2 talisman shop owners were unable to contain their joy. In the middle of September, Mother gave birth a few days earlier than in her previous life. The birth process was smoother than Darling Qiao had imagined. In this life, Mother's health was very good, and she had also entered the ranks of mystic cultivators recently. Although she was only a level 2 mystic cultivator at the moment, her constitution was naturally much better than normal people's. In addition, the Qiao family had made early plans this time. The midwife had been brought over to live in the Qiao family a few days in advance, waiting for Mother's fetal movements so that she could deliver the baby at any time. As a result, there really weren't any accidents. When the midwife who delivered the baby carried little brother out with a smile on her face to announce the good news, Arbor's gentle gaze landed on little brother's swaddling clothes. Xiao son, we meet again. Chapter 258. For the past 2 months, Arbor's cultivation had remained at the initial success stage of level 4 mystic cultivator and hadn't had any major breakthroughs. Entry, gradual success, initial success, phenomenal success, and peak could be said to be the common cultivation stages for mystic cultivators. Mystic cultivators below level 7 might not place too much importance on these small stages of cultivation. But as one's cultivation advanced to level 8, level 9, and even level 10 great mystic cultivators, even if it was just a small difference between entry and gradual success, it would be a world of difference in strength. Since her cultivation hadn't increased, Arbor had been focusing on drawing talismans for the past few days. She had drawn 200 to 300 blank talismans that City Lord Gu had collected for her, and they were basically all auxiliary talismans. Today, she planned to draw a few aura-concealing talismans that she had newly learned. Beginner-level talisman, aura-concealing talisman, reduced one's cultivation by 5 levels and maintained it for 1 month. This talisman was rather interesting. After Arbor drew 20 aura-concealing talismans, she used one and immediately discovered that her mystic energy was completely covered by the aura-concealing talisman. Now, even if she stood in front of her father and second uncle, they would be surprised to discover that they would no longer be able to sense any energy fluctuations from her body. She was just like an ordinary child without any cultivation at all. Arbor lowered her small head and continued to draw another 100 or so summoning talismans at a rapid pace. She stored the remaining 120 blank talismans in her purple storage talisman and kept them close to her body. She raised her head very happily and massaged her sore shoulders. Looking at the sky, it was already close to dusk. Her talisman drawing speed had increased by quite a bit, and she had drawn more than 150 talismans in one afternoon. Especially this kind of super standard beginner-level summoning talisman. After failing to draw it several times, she became more and more proficient in the later stages. Of the 108 summoning talismans, 28 blue summoning talismans were drawn in the later stages. Arbor was abnormally happy. Grabbing a summoning talisman in her palm, Arbor propped up her chin with one hand and pondered. Should she try activating the talisman? The last time she activated the talisman, she got a weak chicken and it left a huge psychological shadow on her. Arbor ran down the attic and circled to the small garden in the back to stand still. She silently inhaled and lowered her head to look at the yellow summoning talisman in her palm. She felt that since her rebirth she still had some luck. How could he summon the same weak chicken twice in a row? That's impossible. Therefore it was better to give it a try. Xiaomu once again took a deep breath. She stretched out 2 fingers with a face full of righteousness and touched the yellow talisman lightly. After the yellow light dissipated, a goo sound was heard. Arbor's first thought was, why does this sound so familiar? Then she glared at the thing that had spread its short wings and was rushing towards her with a goo-goo sound. Xiao Mu and Xiao Mu's dark eyes were about to fall out of their sockets in shock. Oh my god! Why is it this one again? Weak chicken. Ah! What kind of ill-fated relationship was this? However, at a glance, this chicken was much taller than the first time he saw it. Its shape was somewhat similar to that of a young peacock. Furthermore, its feathers were more luxurious than when he first saw it. The feathers at the tip of its tail were much longer and emitted a greenish-blue halo. But no matter how much it changed, it couldn't change the fact that it was still a weak chicken. Deep breaths, don't be angry, don't be angry. Calm down, I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult. I can't make life difficult for a chicken. I'm so angry. Xiao Mu suddenly exploded. She pulled out a knife from somewhere and chased after the chicken to chop it. You scoundrel, why is it you again? I want to summon a beast, do you understand? Why is a weak chicken like you rushing to the front? Go back. Go back. Chapter 259. Ooh. Coo coo coo. Coo coo. The weak chicken let out a shrill cry and flapped its short wings as it ran toward the front of the garden. Its two slender ankles might look extremely thin, but it ran especially fast. Xiao Mu didn't manage to pounce on him. Instead, she rolled into the flower bed. When she jumped out of the flower bed with a head full of flowers and grass, Xiao Mu was stunned. Xiao Zhongbang, second Uncle Qiao, Xiao Yao, Qiao Hu, and the others who rushed over upon hearing the commotion were stupefied. Don't run, you weak chicken. Today, I'll slaughter you for second uncle's dishes. Our dear Xiao Mu raised the knife in her hand and rushed past them. She ran so fast that she didn't even notice that one of her shoes had fallen off. Qiao Zhongbang, second Uncle Qiao, was overjoyed as he followed behind his little niece and roared with laughter. Jojo, don't be busy. Second uncle has braised fish today, so there's no need for this chicken to go with the wine. Don't run. Arbor angrily chased after it. The weak chicken didn't run out of the door and just circled around the court, going from east to west and from west to south. After running several laps around the house, our dear Xiao Mu finally stopped, panting as she carried the knife. She looked at the chicken flapping its wings and cooing in confusion. Why did this fellow run so fast? She was a level 4 mystic cultivator, yet she couldn't catch up to a chicken. How could she endure this? Come over here. Weak chicken. Coo. The weak chicken spread its wings and arrogantly raised its slender neck, looking like it was saying, I won't go over. Arbor reached out to beat its small waist and angrily rolled up its small sleeves. Come over here. Are you coming over or not? If you don't come over, then don't come over for the rest of your life. Xiao Zhongbang was about to die of laughter for his daughter. She herself had never seen this child angrily berate the weak chicken, so it was extremely hilarious. Coo. The weak chicken bounced its slender ankles and ran to the child's side with a coo coo coo. Kid punched the chicken's head, and the weak chicken's feathers stood up with a coo sound, looking like it was about to explode. Infuriating. Darling Xiao took out 2 summoning talismans from her pocket. Damn it, she didn't believe it. She wanted to summon 2 more times to see if this random summon could summon something more reliable. He continued to use 2 summoning talismans. Arbor stood in front of the small flower bed and looked around for a long time. Why is there nothing? It was indeed a deceptive talisman. At this time, Newbie raised its slender claws. Arbor glanced at its claws and saw a small golden engraving of the word, summon. Immediately, a basin of cold water was poured from head to toe. Her little face instantly turned black with anger. She grabbed the chicken by the neck and said angrily, You rascal, don't tell me you want to tell me. I summoned it 3 times in a row, and it all happened to you? Doesn't that mean? She had summoned this weakling 3 times in a row. This weak chicken had to stay by her side for at least 3 days. The weak chicken very sensibly nodded its head, and then the child kicked it into the flower bed. During dinner, Kid's entire body was shrouded in a layer of low pressure. Xiao Zhongbang and second Uncle Qiao wanted to laugh, but they could only restrain themselves and try not to make a sound. They held their bowls and lowered their heads, their shoulders trembling slightly. That weak chicken strongly wanted to be brought to the table, and even had Xiao Yao bring a wide stool to sit next to Kid. The chicken gracefully nodded its head and pecked at the rice grains on the plate. Xiao Hu was just about to open his mouth and laugh when Xiao Yao reached out and covered his mouth. Darling Xiao looked up at Xiao Hu and snorted. She fiddled with the rice in her bowl with her chopsticks and angrily dug at it. I'm done eating. I'm going to see mother. She planned to leave tomorrow afternoon, and she wanted to say goodbye to her mother before leaving. Chapter 260. Mom, don't cry. Didn't we already agree on this before? I'm returning to the sect to cultivate, so there's not much danger. It's just that it might take a bit longer. Arbor held Wei Ziqin's hand and comforted her. Mom, don't worry. I'll take good care of myself. I'll definitely guarantee that Yuanyuan will be chubby and won't be missing a piece of meat when I get home. Wei Ziqin didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at her daughter and sighed. Her daughter had mentioned this to them before, but she always thought that her daughter would at least attend Xiao Sen's 1-month-old celebration before leaving. She didn't expect her daughter to leave so soon. Separation was imminent, and as a mother she didn't feel good. Arbor looked down at her younger brother, who was sleeping soundly in his swaddling clothes, and smiled with a gentle gaze. Xiao Xiao, let your father send you on a journey tomorrow. Mom. Arbor swayed Wei Ziqin's sleeve. There's no need for Dad to send me off. Did you forget that I have Aoyi, this great mystic cultivator, by my side? Xiao Zhongbang recovered his mystic cultivator status 2 months ago, and his cultivation even increased by 1 level after eating the peach. He was now a level 6 mystic cultivator. With her father, a level 6 mystic cultivator, holding down the fort at home, Arbor felt more at ease when he left. Mom, is there enough food at home? You child, you just love to worry. Mom already told you it's enough. The 30 talismans you gave Dad, Mom, and second uncle are all filled with food. The leftover food in the kitchen is enough to last us for more than half a year. Also, didn't the city lord's estate send a cart of grain and beans last time? The city lord is too polite, insisting that it's Xiaoma's rations. Xiaoma actually only ate a few meals here. With so much sent over, I can't even refuse it. Are there enough storage talismans? Enough. The things sent by the city lord's estate have all been stored. There are also space talismans in hand, so don't worry. Besides, your father and second uncle will also take on 1 or 2 small missions from time to time. The family will definitely gradually get better. Mother. Xiao Mu buried her head in her mother's arms. Wei Ziqin smiled and smoothed her long hair. Good girl, you left home alone. You must always remember my words. You must be very careful. Our whole family is waiting for you to come back. They said their goodbyes for almost the entire night. His parents, second uncle Xiao Hu, Xiao Liner, and Xiao Yao all said their goodbyes one by one. The next morning, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, Arbor quietly left the house and ran directly to the Awang Trading Company in the city. When they arrived at the entrance of Awang Trading Company, they saw that the caravan was ready to depart. The middle-aged man leading the caravan was looking left and right. Upon seeing her small figure, she immediately went up to her and nodded politely. You must be Miss Chow. City Lord Gu has already informed us. We will be responsible for bringing Miss Chow safely to the western border of the Chou Kingdom. Arbor looked at the cloth on the 4 or 5 carriages and looked up at the leading man. You must be the Uncle Wang that the city lord mentioned. Thank you. Miss Chow is too polite, Uncle Wang said with a smile. Take the first carriage. The journey to the Chou Kingdom is long and will take at least 10 days. It might be a bit bumpy along the way. Thank you for your trouble. Arbor nodded and boarded the first carriage. This carriage was slightly larger than the one behind, which was filled with cloth. However, there was still a lot of cloth piled up in the corner. Arbor leaned against the side of the carriage and ignored the astonished gazes of the coachman. When the coachman cracked his whip and the carriage wheels started rolling, she couldn't help but reach out to gently lift a corner of the curtain. She looked longingly in the direction of Pear Blossom Alley. At that moment she really didn't know that after she left, so many years had passed, and that the world was vast and boundless. Chapter 261. The main purpose of Awang Trading Company's trip was to visit the young miss who had married off to the distant Qiu kingdom. Exchanging 4 carriages of cloth for food with a certain merchant association in Qiu kingdom was secondary. Arbor didn't ask about anything else. To put it bluntly, she just wanted to hitch a ride and follow the trading company's caravan to the Qiu kingdom. Then, she would think of a way to rush to the Great Snow Mountain outside Five Moon City. The caravan traveled day and slept at night, eating very arduously. Normally, they only ate bean porridge or mixed grain rice once a day. Rice and vegetables were out of the question. If it happened in other people's homes, they would have been beaten to death by the adults long ago for their extravagant behavior of using rice to exchange for this, and that all date there were a total of 5 workers in the caravan, plus Uncle Wang's group of 6. When night fell and they missed their lodging, they set up their tents and sat together to eat a bowl of warm bean porridge. Everyone only had a small bowl, not even half a bowl more than that. Arbor actually didn't plan on sharing the pitifully small pot of bean porridge with them, but Uncle Wang always called her over every time it was time to eat. The little stoic didn't talk much, so she basically had nothing to say when she ate with everyone. If it weren't for a chatterbox in the caravan chatting her all day long, this little stoic could stay silent all day and night. That chatterbox young man was called Monkey. He was 15 or 16 years old and was especially talkative. After a few days of interaction, Monkey didn't find out anything about Darling Chow's situation. Instead, he told her everything about everyone in the caravan. He even told Darling Chow the little secret of their trading company's eldest miss marrying off to the distant Qiu kingdom. Thanks to him, not only did Darling Chow know that the trading company's miss had eloped with someone to the Qiu kingdom, but she also knew that she wasn't doing too well right now. The trading company's trip was set to be to visit the miss, but in reality, they wanted to bring the miss back as much as possible. After all, compared to the stability of the Mo kingdom, a small border country like the Qiu kingdom had much more difficult days, especially during this unusual period. However, this had nothing to do with Arbor, and she didn't have the leisure to care about it. The West is a mess. Wars break out every day and fights every year. There are endless disputes. Monkey drank a mouthful of porridge and smacked his lips as he said, "Little Chow, why did a child like you travel such a long distance to the Qiu kingdom?" Uncle Wang lightly kicked Monkey. "You talk too much. Why does Miss Chow need to report to you? All right, hurry up and finish eating and go to sleep. We still have to leave early tomorrow morning." "Oh look, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why does it look like a chicken is squatting under the tree?" A young man in the convoy rubbed his eyes while holding a bowl of rice. Monkey jumped up and nearly dropped his bowl. "You're not seeing things. It's just a chicken, ha 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 ha. Here's more food for us. Hey, be careful. Don't scare it." Shoo. A waiter took out a net from nowhere and sneakily moved closer to the tree. Chow Mu was sitting beside Uncle Wang. When she heard someone say chicken, she had a bad premonition. Looking back, he saw Newbie squatting under the tree and cooing. "Damn, how did it follow me?" When Arbor went out, he deliberately did not bring this thing with him. He wanted to leave it at home, but it naturally disappeared after 3 days. Who would have thought that it would follow them here? And the problem was that it had been more than 4 days since she left. She had only used 3 summoning talismans. 1 talisman lasted for a day, so 3 talismans would allow it to stay by her side for 3 days. Why? Still existed? Ah. Chapter 262. Cuckoo. Weak Chicken vigilantly flapped its short wings as it watched the 3 humans who were trying to outflank the tree. Heh. Did they think that it couldn't tell that the 3 words "my food" were written greedily in these 3 humans' eyes? Arbor facebombed and speechlessly turned its small face away. She didn't need to look to foresee Monkey's 3 lamentable fates. Even she, a level 4 mystic cultivator, couldn't catch up to Weak Chicken, so those 3 fellows could forget about it. A cuckoo. Clack. Weak Chicken suddenly jumped up as if its feathers were standing on end. It flapped its wings and dashed away, its long and slender claws practically as fast as lightning. A whirlwind blew past the 3 dumbstruck workers. Fuck. Was this the speed that a chicken could exhibit? The 3 workers turned around in unison, and one of them quickly walked forward with a net to catch Weak Chicken on the ground. Weak Chicken flapped its small wings and kicked the worker in the net with its long and slender claws. Don't be fooled by its slender and long claws. When it kicked the worker's back, it sent him, who was so big, flying into the air. A big horse fell to the ground, and before he could react, his head was stomped by 2 chicken feet. Bam, 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 bam. Weak Chicken flapped its wings and fiercely beat the worker's head. Darling Chow covered her eyes with one hand, practically unable to continue watching. Uncle Wong hastily jumped up and waved at the 3 workers, anxiously saying, come back, hurry and come back. How is this a freaking meat chicken to add to the meal? This was simply a violent beast. Monkey hastily ran forward with another person and dragged the pitiful person under the chicken's claws back with a mop. Along the way, the person was forcefully slapped by the chicken's wings several times, and the left side of his face was red and swollen. Cuckoo! Weak Chicken suddenly spread its wings at the crowd. Arbor's expression changed slightly, and she pushed aside a worker who was standing next to her. She roared at everyone, hurry and get out of the way. Everyone rolled and crawled in all directions. A water pillar, like a rainbow piercing through the moon, slid past the monkey with a whoosh and pierced through the old tree behind him, leaving behind a bowl-sized hole in the middle of the tree. The water column rushed past, and in less than a second, the tree split into pieces with a bang. The top half of the giant tree fell down and smashed towards the tents. There was a loud boom, and the entire ground trembled a few times. Xiao Mu's small face instantly turned pitch black after the tent she had set up was completely smashed. Get over here! Darling Chow roared in fury. The weak chicken shrunk its neck, but it still braced itself and flapped its short wings, running in front of the child. Who allowed you to follow me? The child was so angry that he picked up a tree branch thicker than his thigh and threw it at the weak chicken. Don't run, you dead chicken. Who told you to get into trouble? Who told you to do bad things? Uncle Wong was speechless. He thought back to when City Lord Gu greeted him and smiled meaningfully at him. Don't be fooled by Miss Chow's young age. You don't need to worry about anything on this journey. Now that he saw the little girl pick up such a thick tree branch effortlessly, Uncle Wong finally believed City Lord Gu's words. Clack! Cuckoo! The weak chicken flapped its wings vigorously, flying up and down in one moment. It jumped onto the monkey's head, scaring him to the ground. The next moment, it jumped onto the carriage and cooed on the roof. In the end, Darling Chow was exhausted from the chase. Her little face flushed red, and she glared fiercely at the chicken. You! Hurry and disappear! The weak chicken sensibly raised a chicken claw in front of her. The golden summon character was engraved on it, and it sparkled in the night. Chapter 263. Bao Bao is so angry. God is too deceitful. After the talisman effect ended, no matter what kind of beast it was, whether it was an ordinary beast, a high-level mystical beast, or even a demonic beast, or even a demonic plant, any summoned creature should have disappeared along with the end of the time. Why didn't this chicken scram? The last time she summoned it, it only existed for a day and then scrammed. And this time, even if she used 3 summoning talismans, it only corresponded to 3 days. The talisman effect should have ended 3 days ago. Why didn't it scram? Little Xiao Mu was exhausted as she slumped on the mattress in the carriage. She didn't even want to look at a certain chicken that was also slumped beside her with its claws curled up. Master, little master, what's this chicken's name? Usually, Arbor rarely let the little golem out in front of others to avoid that chatterbox monkey asking questions. She wasn't a talkative person. Only when everyone returned to their tents to sleep did little Xiao Mu let it out for a while. Seeing that little master was so tired that she didn't want to bother with it, the golem continued to make its presence known. Master, master, I'm called Big Bao. Is this chicken called Little Bao? Arbor crawled up from the mattress and reached out to hit the golem's head. Bah! Your whole family is called Little Bao. No, your whole family isn't called Little Bao. Bao Bao was so angry. She shouldn't have talked to them. So long-winded, so annoying. So annoying. She might as well be alone and quiet. How can this chicken be called Little Bao? It has a body of blue feathers and is so ugly. I'll call it Da Ching in the future. No, what future? There was no future. Could it be that this thing couldn't disappear? The golem was secretly smug. So ugly. It's not as nice as Big Bao. Little Master definitely loves me the most. Sleep. Little Xiao Mu was so angry that she slumped back onto the mattress. She covered herself with the blanket from head to toe and rolled to the side of the carriage to sleep angrily. The next day, Arbor didn't wake up until the carriage moved slightly. She didn't think that she could sleep well after a night of anger. Her little head poked out of the blanket and met the eyes of that damn chicken. Why haven't you disappeared? This should be the 6th day. Little Xiao Mu pointed at the chicken with a strange look in her eyes. Coo! Weak little chicken raised its paw and pretended to show the word summon. I don't want to see it. The child covered his eyes with one hand and suddenly jumped up from the carriage. His head hit the carriage with a dong sound, and he was in so much pain that tears were about to flow out. Little Master, Little Master, Little Master, does it hurt? The golem shouted as it circled around her feet. Miss Little Xiao Mu. Hearing the commotion, Uncle Wang urged his horse to gallop to the side of the carriage. We have to leave the Mo Kingdom's borders before sunset. Let's continue on our way. Xiao Mu rubbed her small head and glared fiercely at the cowering weakling. Was it because she had used 3 summoning talismans in a row that the talisman's power and time did not match? This thought would eventually disappear after 4 days. Xiao Mu looked oddly at the weak chicken that had persisted for so many days without disappearing. She finally understood something. This little Xiao Mu lowered her head and looked at the yellow summoning talisman for a while. She had a bad feeling. Could it be that she couldn't summon anything else, but this little Xiao? We're entering the border of the Qiu Kingdom. Do you want to come out and take a look? Chapter 264. Upon hearing this, Arbor put away the yellow summoning talisman in her hand and lifted a corner of the curtain to look outside. As far as the eye could see, it was all yellow sand and thick soil. It looked hazy, and a few sparse houses could be faintly seen amidst the sand and dust. As expected, the western border wasn't as prosperous and wealthy as the Mo Kingdom. Arbor hopped off the carriage, and the chicken also flapped its wings and hopped to her side, its 2 slender and long claws clicking happily. The border town of the Qiu Kingdom is just up ahead. Uncle Wang led a horse inside in relief. Our journey here was quite smooth. Miss Qiao, let's go over now. Their journey had indeed been quite smooth, especially since they hadn't encountered a single zombie in the Mo Kingdom. Even Arbor found it inconceivable. However, when they exited the Mo Kingdom and entered the Liang Kingdom, they had encountered a small group of zombies. Fortunately, their convoy had escaped quickly, so they hadn't encountered the zombie squad to avoid wasting their energy fighting. The further west we go, the more careful Miss Qiao will be. Although the Qiu Kingdom is a small kingdom, the king is tyrannical and unscrupulous. The soldiers he raised also casually trample on the villagers. Uncle Wang sighed and shook his head. When we pass through Pony Town later, we will need to hand over some supplies. Miss Qiao, just sit in the carriage and don't make a sound. Xiao Mu nodded and then boarded the carriage again. Da Qing, that weak chicken, also hopped onto the carriage and sat down next to the child, miming to her. The carriage headed towards Pony Town at the border of the Qiu Kingdom. When they reached the entrance of the town, they naturally slowed down and caught up with the group passing through. There weren't many people lining up to pass through the Qiu Kingdom border. Most of the people in the northern part of Sikong Planet were concentrated in the Mo Kingdom. Other than the businessmen who came and went, very few ordinary refugees would flee to a small kingdom like the Qiu Kingdom to make a living. What are you doing? What are you holding? Give it to me. The soldier who was investigating directly snatched the basket from an elderly woman's hands, ignoring the objections of others. When he lifted the cover of the basket, the stench of salted fish assailed his nostrils. It was so fucking smelly, yet she treated it as a treasure. The soldier was so angry that he threw the basket to the ground. The old woman cried as she squatted down to pick up the salted fish that had rolled into the dust. The Qiu soldiers kicked her impatiently and she rolled to the side. Scram! Line up properly, what are you looking at? The soldier's gaze landed on Uncle Wang's convoy, and a trace of greed flashed in his eyes. Come over here. The motorcade was coming. What are you transporting? Uncle Wang smiled as he handed over a small bag of beans. He whispered into the soldier's ear, "Little brother, we are a trading company from the Mo Kingdom. We have an agreement with your country's Duamu trade union to exchange goods. This is the exchange document between the two countries, as well as the certificate from Duamu trade union." The soldier glanced at Uncle Wang and took the documents from him. He did not dare to make things difficult for him. After all, the Duamu trade union was famous in the Qiu kingdom. Even the great king of the Qiu kingdom would tremble when the patriarch of the Duanmu family stomped his feet. A mere soldier like him naturally did not dare to make things difficult for a customer of the Duamu trade union. However, this small bag of beans, which did not even weigh 5 caddies, was truly too little. If the brothers were to split it, they might not even get half a caddy. The soldier glanced askance at Uncle Wang. "According to custom, we have to search the convoy." On the side, Monkey glared angrily at the soldier, but Uncle Wang pulled him to the side by his sleeve. He responded with a smile, "Sir Soldier, please take a look. However, our young miss is in the first carriage, so please do not disturb her." Chapter 265. Swoosh! The soldier didn't care about what Uncle Wang said. He lifted the curtain of Arbor's carriage first. In an instant, he was met with a pair of cold and emotionless eyes. The eyes were like a dry well without any ripples. She looked at him as if she was looking at a corpse. He was clearly just a child sitting quietly in the carriage, but the moment he saw him, he gave the soldier a fright. "You!" The soldier took half a step back and was patted on the shoulder by another soldier behind him. "What are you doing?" The soldier who came later pushed aside the soldier in front and leaned over to take a look at Arbor. A strange look flashed through his eyes. The child sitting quietly in the carriage was young, but she sat upright and had a noble aura deep in her bones. Because it was the beginning of autumn, the child wore a black brocade cloak over her pink robes. Her snow-white face was already foreseeable that she would be a flawless beauty when she grew up. "Yo, this little girl looks pretty good." The soldier licked his lips and carelessly touched the child's cold face. However, just as he stretched out his hand, Weak Chicken cooed and lowered its head to peck him fiercely. "Ah!" The soldier looked down and saw a bloody mark on his hand. His expression changed abruptly, and he glared fiercely at the carriage. He had been attracted by the child's cold and beautiful appearance and hadn't realized that there was a chicken in the carriage. "Fuck! It's a chicken!" The soldier's eyes turned green when he saw the chicken. He smacked his lips and said gruffly, "Brothers, there's a chicken here. Let's catch it. It'll go well with wine tonight." The dozen or so soldiers cheered and laughed. They were all excited when they heard that there would be chicken to go well with wine tonight. Who knew how terrible their lives had been recently? Ever since zombies spread throughout the Qiu kingdom, it was good enough to barely have 2 meals a day, let alone chicken, duck, and fish. "Soldiers, you can't." Uncle Wang hurriedly went forward to stop them, but he was pushed aside by a soldier. "Little girl, you'd better come down." The oily soldier maliciously extended his hand toward Xiao Mu again. Arbor's eyes were extremely cold. Although she didn't like Weak Chicken, it didn't mean that any cat or dog could bully Weak Chicken. Newbie was her summoned creature, not someone else's dish. Therefore, this group of blind idiots could go to hell. Bam! A kick landed on the oily soldier's face. The other party was caught off guard. With a wail, he fell backward and landed heavily on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. The 2 nearby soldiers also ate a mouthful of dust, and their faces were immediately filled with anger. One of them rushed forward and was about to lift the curtain again when he saw a small figure dart out of the carriage with a whoosh, and a fierce fist landed on his eye. His eyeballs almost flew out on the spot. Roar! The soldier covered his eyes and cried out in pain. He fell to the ground on his butt. Before he could see the situation in front of him clearly, he was suddenly slapped in the mouth by a slender chicken claw. He was stunned. The oily soldier that was the first to be kicked down by Xiao Mu strenuously crawled up from the ground and cursed angrily with a contorted face. He glared viciously at Xiao Mu and said, "Damn lass, you're quite capable. See if I don't sell you to a brothel after I catch you." Arbor's pitch-black eyes stared at the oily soldier. It was as if she could shoot a hole through him. Suddenly, she flew through the air and quickly arrived in front of the oily soldier. Arbor waved her hand, and a white light flashed between her fingers and the oily soldier's neck. Chapter 266. Oily soldier was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. If he hadn't taken a step back, the white light would have slashed his neck. How could this little girl be so ruthless? Unfortunately, that was only what he thought. He thought he had dodged death, but in the next instant, his neck was cleanly separated from his head. There was a thin line on his neck, and it took a while for blood to flow out. The soldiers all stopped in their tracks and looked at the little demon with fear in their eyes. They had never seen a child take someone's life the moment she attacked. How old was she? 7? 8? The people waiting in line had already scrambled to the sides of the road, not daring to make a sound. Arbor kicked away the soldier's corpse and coldly scanned the crowd. In the past, you've sold many little girls to places like the one he mentioned, right? He really did kick. It was as if he had kicked a pile of trash instead of a person. More than a dozen show soldiers were trembling in fear in front of a little girl. This was something they had not expected and could not have imagined. These people had dominated Ponytown for a long time. They had never thought that they would be defeated by a little girl one day. Looking at his companion's decapitated corpse on the ground, one of the soldiers forced himself to grit his teeth. He flashed the knife in his hand and angrily roared, "Everyone, let's attack together. She's just a little girl. Do you think we can let her go?" Upon hearing this, 4 to 5 sturdy Cho soldiers immediately ran over and brandished their shining sabers at Xiao Mu. A few young men from Uncle Wang's team wanted to help, but the remaining 7 or 8 soldiers rushed up and pressed them to the ground. The Cho soldiers were especially ruthless. They rushed up without a care and swung their clubs at the crowd. Not only did they injure the young men in the convoy, but they also injured the trembling commoners who were squatting on the side. An old man was too slow in retracting his leg and was hit. His leg bone immediately cracked, and he let out a pitiful cry. Arbor's eyes flashed with anger. He sneered, "You can't wait to die?" Several body-securing talismans suddenly floated in front of the little girl. One by one, they split open on the soldiers' bodies. He immediately summoned a black ferrule from his mind and pointed it at the Cho soldiers who were frozen in place with their mouths wide open. Then die obediently. Xiao Mu was like a sharp arrow that had been shot out. She swiftly circled around the soldiers, and wherever her ferrule passed by, several round heads slid down from their necks one by one. The 7 or 8 soldiers who were crazily beating up the commoners stopped in shock. One of them shouted towards the entrance of the town. His eyes filled with shock, "Quick, go and inform 5 Moon City's guard Hua. Enemy troops are invading." A Cho soldier who was watching the battle at the entrance of the small town immediately mounted his horse and rode into the town in a crooked manner. Enemy forces? Xiao Mu was a bit dumbfounded as she poked her small face. Uncle Wang hurriedly ran over. "Miss Chow, take advantage of the fact that there are no guards at the town's entrance. Quickly follow us into Duanmu Trade Union." As long as he went to Duanmu Trade Union, he would be fine. Duanmu Trade Union had great influence in the Cho Kingdom, and definitely had the right to speak. Now that they had alerted 5 Moon City's guards, even if they turned back and ran towards the Liang Kingdom, they would be caught before long. Chapter 267. Unexpectedly, the little girl only shook her head. "Uncle Wang, we're already in the Cho Kingdom. According to our agreement, you can leave first." She would not go with them to Duanmu Trade Union, nor would she implicate them. Since she had already chosen to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Cho soldiers, she did not want to let them off so easily. Of course, she was the one who started this, so she would bear all the consequences. "Uncle Wang, go to Duanmu Trade Union with the others." "I'm fine." Arbor urged Uncle Wang and the others to leave. Uncle Wang was unwilling. "I promised the city lord that I would bring you safely to the Cho Kingdom. Brother Monkey, take Uncle Wang away." "Don't worry, I'll be fine. If you stay here, I'll have to take care of you." The child curled her lips and said expressionlessly, "Thank you for taking care of me along the way. We'll meet again if fate wills it." With that, she waved a few immobilization talismans and immediately froze the 7 or 8 horrified Cho soldiers on the spot. At this moment, Uncle Wang had also seen some signs. He had suspected that the child had an extraordinary background. Now that he saw her actions and thought of City Lord Gu's words, he did not hesitate anymore. The child's words made sense. If they continued to stay here, they might become a burden. Now they had to take the opportunity to enter the town and seek protection from the Duanmu Trade Union. Only then would they be truly safe. The entrance to the town was in chaos. The citizens in line followed Uncle Wang's caravan and hurriedly entered the town. None of them dared to linger. In the end, the entrance to the town was empty except for Arbor. Of course, that was if one ignored the 8 Cho soldiers kneeling at the entrance with their hands tied behind their backs. The weak chicken trotted to Xiao Mu's side with its slender and long claws, and it gracefully squatted down beside her. Arbor glanced at it but did not say anything. The weak chicken turned its head and looked at the child. Cuckoo cooed. A group of Cho soldiers appeared in Pony Town. There were about 100 of them. 5 Moon City's guards would not arrive so quickly. This was probably the town's overall defense force. The tiny Cho kingdom only had 1 main city and 2 smaller cities. It wasn't even 1% the size of the northern Mo kingdom. However, since it was located at the western border, it served as a great barrier against the barbarian tribes in the west. Furthermore, trade was very frequent, so the upper echelons of the Mo kingdom allowed the existence of this barrier. Otherwise, such a small country with no sense of existence would have been annexed hundreds of years ago. Therefore, when he received the news of an enemy invasion, Ponytown's deputy garrison was truly shocked. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't understand why they were suddenly attacked. Liangua did it? Or was it the state of Zhao? Or perhaps the Mo kingdom? The deputy garrison leader's gaze fell outside the town. His pupils constricted at first, and then they were filled with confusion. There was a little girl sitting at the entrance of the town. She was about 7 or 8 years old. She held a black ferrule in her hand and gently tapped it against her palm. "Who are you?" The deputy didn't dare to act rashly. He reined in his horse and stood still. Without waiting for the child to speak, a coo sound was heard. Weak Chicken suddenly stood up, shook its short wings and waddled in front of everyone. The deputy garrison leader and the soldiers were all dumbfounded. What was this chicken doing? Xiao Mu also jumped up before taking out a handful of talismans. Weak Chicken cooed, and all its feathers stood on end. With a splash, a pillar of water swept into the group like a torrent. Ah! The group was immediately scattered. Many soldiers rolled and fell in the water. Chapter 268. This time Arbor froze on the spot in a daze. He really didn't expect this weak chicken to suddenly jump out and fly into a rage. This mouthful of water was really good. Arbor's eyes curved. He was about to praise the weak chicken, which he rarely did, when he turned his head to look. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch inexplicably. The weak chicken's current actions were rather strange, but looking at it lying on the ground and shaking its butt non-stop, that wretched appearance was really unbearable to look at. On the other side, the deputy garrison was helped up from the ground with a dark face. He was drenched from head to toe, looking like a drowned rat. When he got up, the deputy garrison's feet slipped, and he managed to stabilize himself with great difficulty. He turned his head and berated his soldiers to regroup. A bunch of cowards. So many people couldn't even handle a chicken. The deputy garrison roared, "Hurry up, hurry up!" When he turned his head to look at the chicken, he couldn't help but be stunned as well. This chicken. What was it doing? It kept shaking its butt and using its claws to dig a hole in the ground. Its butt kept rubbing against the hole. Was it trying to start a fire on its own? Or was it fucking constipated? "Sir, this chicken fiend is very strange." A soldier stretched out a finger and pointed at the weak chicken as he spoke in a genteel manner. "Nonsense. Can't I see that there's something strange about this chicken? Who would normally raise a chicken that could spray water so far? Not only did it wash over 100 of them, but it also drenched them all. What an outrageous chicken." The deputy guard slapped away the arrogant soldier with a slap. "All of you. The deputy garrison stretched out his hands and gestured for them to charge forward. All of you go. Capture it alive for me. See if I don't kill it alive and steam fry it. Coo. The weak chicken raised its head and looked at the deputy garrison with a cute and innocent face. The deputy garrison felt like he had seen a ghost. Why did he feel like this damn chicken seemed to understand what he was saying? Go. The deputy garrison shook his sleeves, and a bunch of soldiers behind him roared and rushed toward the weak chicken that was digging a hole in the middle. Xiao Mu stood behind weak chicken and couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her face. Newbie had been digging a hole. Could it be that it was digging a coffin for itself and jumping in to bury itself? Screech. Suddenly weak chicken let out a long and clear cry that tore through the sky. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the weak chicken's body was undergoing a strange transformation. It kept rubbing its butt, and its sharp tail feathers kept extending and extending. A wisp of blue light suddenly bloomed all over its body. Its pair of pitifully short wings suddenly spread out, leaving behind a gorgeous shadow. When it spread out, it was at least 10 meters long, and its green wings stretched straight to the horizon. Xiao Mu was dumbstruck and subconsciously blinked her eyes. Compared to the young master's dumbfounded expression, the deputy garrison guard and his men were the most terrified. They wished they could poke their own eyes out for comfort. Chicken. Chicken my ass. What kind of chicken was this? Who could tell them that this big bird with beautiful wings and green eyes, which part of it looked like a chicken? Huh. Ah. If slapping themselves 3 times could make them think that everything in front of them was a dream, they would be more than happy to slap themselves in the face. As a certainty this is a divine bird, right? Do I need you to spout nonsense? This isn't a chicken, anyone can tell. Screech. The green bird flapped its super huge wings and suddenly rushed into the air, circling above everyone. The deputy garrison guard was so scared that he fell on his butt, his old face dark. Chapter 269. Shriek. The cyan bird shrieked, and its circling figure abruptly swooped down from the sky. The deputy guard was so frightened that his face turned pale, and he scrambled to run backward. Run, run. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Heavy rain suddenly poured down from the sky. The scary thing was that the rainwater turned into ice cubes of various sizes halfway through, and smashed into the heads of the Cho soldiers running for their lives. Ah! Ah! Fuck, fuck. The soldiers who were hit all fell to the ground with their heads broken and bleeding. They cried bitterly as they scrambled away. Some of the more timid ones were so frightened that they fell to the ground and foamed at the mouth. Shriek. While the cyan bird was attacking the crowd, a large group of soldiers led by 5 Moon Town's Guard Hua swiftly ran toward the town's entrance. From afar, Guard Hua and his group saw the large cyan bird circling in the sky. Its wings almost covered the entire sky. Its body was so huge that it caused the hearts of Guard Hua and the others to skip a beat. Did some nearby kingdom bring a large group of mystic cultivators and mystic beasts to attack? Release the arrows. Guard Hua roared. He raised his hand, and the thousands of soldiers below raised their bows and shields and lined up in formation. Aoye's expression changed, and he suddenly appeared beside the little girl. He pursed his lips and called out. In an instant, dozens of black figures rushed over and landed behind Aoye. The little guy turned around and looked at the youth who stayed up all night with a dumbfounded expression. Shuei's eyes were filled with a strange expression. Today was so lively. First, the weak chicken ascended to the heavens. Then Aoye attracted so many people. If Aoye hadn't taken the initiative to tell them to show themselves, the child wouldn't have noticed so many people lurking around her. Every one of these youths in black had cultivation auras that were no weaker than Aoye's. Why was it like this? Since when were level 10 mystic cultivators as common as cabbages on Seekong planet? As expected, poverty limited one's imagination. Thinking back to her previous life, she simply couldn't come into contact with this magnificent level. Moreover, how weak was she that she couldn't reach the standard of a level 10 mystic cultivator until her death? No wonder she was tortured to death without any room to retaliate. She wanted to increase her cultivation. She wanted to advance. She wanted to work hard to become stronger. That the youth's gazes fell on the little girl in the middle. The little girl was clenching her small fists with a strange expression on her face. She clenched her fists forcefully again and again, making a comical gesture. What happened to Miss? Stay Up Late was speechless as he looked at the child. Inside, however, he was smiling. It was rare to see Miss so full of life. It was really good. He didn't know what had touched the depths of her cold heart. When the little stoic returned to her senses, she discovered that her actions were very strange. With a stoic face, she calmly retracted her small hand and turned to look in the direction where the thousands of arrows were simultaneously released. Release the arrows. Behind Guard Hua, hundreds of thousands of arrows flew out and shot towards the bluebird in the sky. The little girl's face changed. She stomped the ground and tried to run, but Stay Up Late grabbed her arm. Young miss, wait. Screech. The bluebird flew up in midair, bringing with it a ray of blue light. In the blink of an eye, all the arrowheads in front of it were sucked in. At this time it was as if time had stopped, and all the arrowheads stopped in front of the green bird. Guard Hua looked at the sky in horror and abruptly berated his subordinates. Retreat. Everyone retreat, retreat. All of you rascals, listen carefully. The one who will take your lives today is me. My name is Qingwan. I was born from heaven and earth. Screech. After the stern screech, countless motionless arrowheads uniformly changed directions and violently shot towards Guard Hua's army. Chapter 270. Guard Hua and his men ran into the town scared witless. They scrambled to find cover to block the arrows. However, the arrows came too suddenly. The Qiu soldiers had no time to react. At least half of them were injured by the arrows. They fell to the ground and wailed in terror. Xiao Mu's face was filled with shock. After a while, she pulled her gaze away from the scattered Qiu soldiers. She looked up at the sky and suddenly heard a low cry. The bluebird quickly flew in front of her. Before she could react, she felt her body lighten. She was thrown onto the bird's back, and it rose into the air. The child knelt on the bird's back in a daze and looked down. Guard Hua was hiding in the crowd. He was furious. With the help of a few people, he managed to climb up the town's observation tower and ordered the soldiers to use the large crossbows to shoot the bluebird in the sky. These large crossbows were powerful and had a long range. However, they had an obvious weakness: they were slow to load. Guard Hua's expression was vicious. He didn't order the soldiers to aim at the blue bird, but the child on its back. However, just as he moved, Aoye's sword was pressed against his neck. Guard Hua didn't even see the figure clearly. All he saw was dozens of black figures quickly climb up and occupy the observation tower. With a few slashes, they slit the throats of the surrounding Qiu soldiers. Blood dripped down the high platform. Below, thousands of soldiers raised their spears and machetes and surrounded the entire observation tower. Aoye's sword lightly touched Guard Hua's neck. Guard Hua felt as if a venomous snake had slithered up his neck. It was so cold that his entire body trembled. What are you doing? Obediently retreat and I'll leave your corpse intact. With that, he took out a token and waved it in front of Guard Hua coldly. Guard Hua's pupils constricted. If not for the fact that he was being held by someone, he would have collapsed to the ground already. This was the personal token of the Emo Kingdom's crown prince. Why did it turn out like this? Why did it provoke someone like the crown prince of the northern Emo Kingdom? Guard Hua was sweating profusely. He had no idea what was going on. Move quickly. Tell your men to stop shooting arrows and throwing stones. Otherwise, it will be seen as a provocation. You won't be able to withstand the wrath of the crown prince. Stay Up Late pressed his sword against Guard Hua's neck. At the same time, the blue bird circling in the sky used its huge wings to fan a gust of wind, suddenly knocking down all the stones and arrows that were shot into the air. The Qiu soldiers howled in agony. They were no match for the blue bird. Guard Hua hurriedly shouted, "Stop the attack! Stop!" Screech. The blue bird flapped its huge wings and glided across the vast blue sky. In an instant it disappeared before everyone's eyes. Stay Up Late slid his sword across Guard Hua's neck and tossed his corpse off the watchtower. The Qiu soldiers reached out to catch Guard Hua's falling corpse. They were all leaderless and fearful as they looked up at the dozens of black-clothed youths with powerful auras on the observation deck. Go back and tell your great king to properly inventory a batch of supplies and send it to Miss Chow from the Holy Water Sect's first peak as compensation for your offensive words. If the compensation isn't in place within 3 days, stay up late. Narrowed his cold eyes. You don't want to know the consequences of offending our crown prince. After throwing down these harsh words, the group of black-clothed youths immediately left. They naturally didn't care about the Cho soldiers' wails below.